Sounds it away
Hey,
from. Oh boy.
yeah, and we are live for another episode of Where Heartbreak Feels Good, a dazzling podcast that. Sorry, I'm not gonna do the bit. I'm sick. But yeah, but today we're here to talk about House of the Dragon. More specifically, we're gonna talk about the first five episodes, 1 through 5. I feel like this is a really good part one to start with for this little like two-parter miniseries, especially since we have like different cast members going in and out.
hmm
So joining me today is Evan Harris from My Cup of Tea.
Yeah, glad to be here. We're both sick. We're both powering through. So if you see any weird coughs or us muting ourselves, it's just it's that time of the season. But I'm excited for this. You come up with a great idea to do your 1 through 5 review. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. House of the Dragon, one of my favorite shows. We talk about it all the time during our
Monthly episodes.
monthly recap episodes. We're talking about what we're watching this past month, and ever since August hit, this show has just dominated my brain. I'm always thinking about it. I'm always rewatching the preview trailer or the new stills for the new episodes, even though I have no clue what's going to happen. That's the beauty of the show for me, at least. I think I'll have more of a clue for season 2 because I'll read the book over the 2-year time gap. But anyways, I've been loving this show so far, and I can't wait to dive into episodes 1 through 5 because this younger cast has been incredible.
Yeah.
Just absolutely incredible. This whole first season, I keep thinking back to what you told me, you and Alden, like this first season is basically a couple paragraphs. And to have Ryan, the producer, writer of the show, flesh out this season with such depth and incredible character work is really surprising and like just awesome in general. Because I've been loving this. I thought it was like a couple of chapters. I didn't know it was just like a couple of paragraphs. So this is great, especially also like with House of the Dragon. Uh, it's an adaptation, but I mean, you obviously know more than me, but there wasn't any like fact or fiction with the OG Fire and Blood book.
Yeah.
So again, to have this show be so well received, have such great character work off of an adaptation that's not really accurate, the show is accurate. It's just marvelous. So yeah, I'm super hyped on the show. I love it. Love it.
Yeah. Well, to get us started, let me do like a bit of an intro to like set the tone for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, to give you an idea of what House of the Dragon is talking about, here's a bit of a brief synopsis. Approximately 172 years before the birth of Daenerys Targaryen, a civil war within House Targaryen breaks out over who will sit on the Iron Throne after the reign of King Viserys I. Will it be the king's firstborn child, Rhaenyra, or his second-born child, Aegon II, from his second marriage? During the beginning of this series, the Targaryens are at the height of their power and will find themselves in a bloody conflict involving their mighty dragons. And
Whew.
I think favorite um one of my favorite like descriptions of what this first half of this story of this season is, there's this quote in Fire and Blood, which is the series is based on, um and the quote kind of goes like, the seeds of war are often planted during times of peace, and I feel like that captures perfectly what's happening in this first five episodes. And I wanted to get your thoughts, like your general thoughts about like the first five episodes. What are you like? What are some like highlights for you?
Tons of highlights. I think the main one is the cast. Like I love Millie Alcock and Emily. I forget her last name. Basically, Rhaenyra, young Allison were amazing in this show. Young Allison giving a lot of subtle performances compared to young Rhaenyra, who delivered a lot of like more expressive and dynamic uh, character journeys. But they were both equally great. So I love the young cast mostly. And then episodes 1 through 5 in general, the biggest thing for me is just I don't know, the direction in general. Certain battle sequences, I love episode 3.
Yeah,
Oh, and a big thing that I love about the show is, in comparison to Game of Thrones, this one is way more diving into the history, the lore, the magic. Game of Thrones, of course, gave us White Walkers and zombies basically towards the later end of the season or series. But this one's diving into old Valyria, different languages, just more traditional magical stuff that I come to love about this world. So I'm so glad that House of the Dragon is really diving into it. It's some things that we don't usually see on Game of Thrones. So yeah, loving it.
Yeah, I'm going to like continue your point a little bit there because
Hmm.
obviously there is magic in Game of Thrones. I mean, there's ice zombies,
Yeah,
there's dragons, there's like the red priestess and all, but like to me it often felt like um either the show didn't know how to handle the magic side of things, or it was just like kind of embarrassed of it because it doesn't really
yeah,
dive into the magic really, like compared to something like Lord of the Rings. It's like not even close.
yeah,
um but like like you said, like this show like is like a little bit, a tiny bit more interested in the magical side. I'm sure we're gonna talk about like Aegon the Conqueror's prophecy towards the end of the first episode and stuff
yeah.
like that, but like it's really interesting how the magic comes into play into this show. And like I wanted to start off by like kind of like from like a book reader to like a casual viewer, like
Okay.
I wanted to like ask you, like, do you think they really did a good job at setting up like the Great Council of 101, like the prologue of episode
Mm.
one? Like, did you understand the dynamics and why it mattered?
It's so hard for me. I'm a casual viewer. I don't read the book, but I am so into. I talk to you all the time. I talk to other people all the time. So I had knowledge going into this that they were going to have this scene, and I think as a casual fan and as somebody who talks to my dad all the time, who loves the show as well, not the time skips, but he loves the show, and he wasn't really that confused. I think it was a great prologue. I think it was set up as much as you really needed to know. Of course, there was a whole thing where they actually, one of the writers, maybe it was George, I'm not sure who, wanted to see the early Jaehaerys's reign. Yeah, Jaehaerys's
Jaehaerys.
reign. And instead, they fast forwarded it just to have one council, and boom, you're into the House of the Dragon plot. I think that works more effectively. I think that was a good scene, setting us up for the dynamics. You get the whole, not Rhaenyra. Who's the queen that wasn't promised? What's her name? The queen that
Rhaenys?
Rhaenys. We get the whole Rhaenys thing there. We introduce a Corlys, and we're introduced to Viserys, who became king. I think it was a very short but adequate scene. I don't think that was anything confusing. I haven't heard much questions about it, so I think they set it up pretty dang well.
Yeah.
And it gave us like the most important parts are like what we've seen from the show so far. So I don't think they cut anything too much, but just a casual.
Yeah. I think that they did a really good job at like telling you why that event matters, because it's going to come out to play again during Rhaenyra's arc and her claim to the throne.
Hmm.
I really, this is a really good example of oversimplifying events from the books, because like in Fire and Blood, it's kind of described that not only was Rhaenys claim denied, but like after they proposed to like give the throne to Laenor, um, they didn't allow that either, because Rhaenys was still like it couldn't just be passed down to like a male through a female line. It had to go through Viserys, and that's not in the show, but it's still kind of like the same idea. And again, it's an example of simplifying something and it's still making it work.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. But yeah, you're right. Like it gave us the pretty much the theme of the season is in this scene, in the sense that hey, I don't want this woman to be king. I want Viserys to be the ruler, um, and that's pretty much the theme of the show because Rhaenyra is in line to be queen, but throughout these first 5 episodes in particular, people are always telling her it's not going to happen. So I really like that.
yeah. Um, and I mean, we can talk about whatever you want right now with episode one, but one of my probably biggest standout of the pilot is I'm not sure how you pronounce her name, Cian Cheyenne the actress that plays Queen Emma.
Mm,
She's incredible, and like I love whenever Game of Thrones did this, and this show is doing it too. That an actor is given the chance to come in just for one episode. They're probably gonna die in that episode by the end
yeah,
of the episode, but they still like leave a mark on the show. And I think she's been like the most significant, especially because her death alone it leaves an entire like mark on the show. Like that's the entire reason why Viserys even names Rhaenyra as the heir, or one of the reasons. So What do you thought about that? About
I
Queen Emma?
adored that scene. That was fantastic. Episode one, also one of my favorite premieres just in general because the editing of the first episode was so well done. We got the sense of scale for the whole castle and King's Landing and everything. But you're right, Emma came in for one scene. I think all she did was just lay down in that bed or a little bit, or maybe she had a couple other scenes. Um, but she left a big impact. She left a big mark on the show. I loved her relationship with Rhaenyra. You get the sense that she's a very caring mother to Rhaenyra. She's just a great person in general. People loved her. And to see her taken away from us is just like, okay, this show is going to be pretty brutal. And just the editing between her and the what was it? It was editing between her having being pregnant and the tournament, right? Going on at the same time, and just that juxtaposition was incredible. Very good use of editing and very symbolic in terms of like the war going on outside or the conflict going on outside and the conflict going on internally with Viserys and the decision that he makes and how she's so helpless. She can't do anything. She's literally pinned down to the bed. It was so tragic and dark, and we learned so much about Emma from about Viserys, who we learn basically all we need to know about Viserys from this first episode. How he can't control people. He makes very rash decisions, and he really wanted a son. Um, and how he neglected family for a little bit. Now that's going to change. I think part of his growth is that he really comes to like appreciate his family by naming Rhaenyra the heir. But yeah, in this scene, it was just brutal, brutal for a scene. He's like, you know what, Aemma might have to go, and he gets what he wants for like 10 seconds.
2 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, take it
I
away.
yeah, I find that relationship very interesting because it kind of reminds me of that line in Game of Thrones. They love to repeat it a lot. Duty is the death of love, or love is the death of duty. Something like that.
Yeah.
And well, give me a minute. Look
Hello.
who it is.
Oh
Hey,
wow, on
Team
time.
Allison, yo. Team Allison,
Team-
let's go.
we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
With the green heart and everything. Oh boy.
Anyway,
This
back
is
to
gonna
my
be an
point.
Interesting discussion.
Yeah, we're talking about the first episode right now, or the pregnancy scene in general.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Aemma, just Game of Thrones, like you said, does a great job of having these characters come in for a little bit and then just leaving a big impact. We'll talk about it later on with Harwin and some other actors. But yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, but how I was saying, like the entire that line coming into play here, like it is very clear that Viserys loves this woman like to pieces, yet he's still putting his dreams and his like hopes for the future above that love, and it comes down to a very he pays a big price for that, and at the end of the day, it kind of like one of the big reasons why this war is eventually gonna kick off. And I think that's very intriguing. And also like her relationship with her daughter, Aemma and Rhaenyra, like it's very sweet. Like this is not a bad relationship like the ones we see in Game of Thrones between Joffrey and Cersei and stuff like that. Like
No.
this
Yeah.
seems like a pretty regular, normal family, and it's just taken away just like that.
Yeah, that dynamic is never really the same. Like it grows, it develops. He grows to love Rhaenyra more. She grows to love him a little bit more. But yeah, the relationship is just never the same. And I love how they portrayed that change in relationship by just having the space in the dinner scene, or just them not really talking that much anymore, which creates room for Allison to be the person that he talks to instead.
Yeah.
My queen.
So yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, and it's great juxtaposition of like cutting back and forth between the bird scene and the tourney scene between Damon and Kristen Cole. Like you see, like on one hand, like men in this world just die to please the king, while women, like somebody like the queen, also is like killing herself basically, like for the same reasons, but in a different, arguably more brutal and heartbreaking way. But yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can jump into whatever you guys want to talk about in episode one. Is there anything, Damon, Allison, Otto?
Oh
What do you
man,
want
Yeah. Damon's introduction was like perfect. Couldn't have been better. It was conveyed brilliantly, and I think it just set the entire mood of the show. Having Matt Smith in like Game of Thrones You know, it's something I always thought would happen. I always wanted it to happen. It made perfect sense to have him as Damon.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, Sean. But yeah, you're right. Matt Smith's portrayal of Damon is just beautiful. Like I am completely, utterly obsessed with Damon. I haven't been this obsessed with the character not since Kylo, but just like I just love these types of characters. It's just incredible.
He's having so much fun being the baddie.
Yes,
Yeah.
and again, he's that morally gray, chaotic character. Recently, I love what Matt Smith said about him in an interview. Like he's always just leaning, he's lurking. Like in episode 7, he was just leaning. It's just some great stuff. And yeah, we're introduced with him sitting on the Iron Throne, which is basically a picture says 1,000 words, right? He wants to be ruler, or at least he wants to have a position of power. I still, even to this day, I'm like, what does Damon want?
Yeah, I view that more as like him just being arrogant, like knowing that he can get away with anything with his brother.
And he's getting exiled 5 fucking times. It's great. But yeah, man, I've never been the biggest Matt Smith fan. Like, I know he was in line to be in Star Wars. I haven't really watched Doctor Who or his version of Doctor Who. So I think he was in Terminator Genisys, or maybe he wasn't. I'm not sure.
It just made so much sense to have
I'm not
him
sure.
in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, he fit, like, as soon as the casting came out, I'm like, oh, I'm not really familiar with him, but I know of him. I know he's very talented, English Broadway actor. So, so yeah, he's easily for me the Steen Steeler of the entire series so far. Like, the show wouldn't be the same without him.
Yeah, I'd say Millie L. Cook, or
yeah,
she was fucking perfect as Rhaenyra.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I like her more or the new actress. I really can't tell.
It's hard.
Yeah. I also, about their introduction, I think it's not subtle because they force you to read subtitles, but I think it's a great way to like introduce him, like him speaking Valyrian, like that idea that them two are like the truest dragons of the family. They're the ones that are like comfortable talking in High Valyrian to themselves, in private or publicly. So yeah, I think that entire sequence is just great. And the throne, the throne itself, like it's not fully book accurate, but like the extra swords, it just makes it like having this like presence, and even more so.
If they just put like one story of swords higher, it would have been book accurate. Just one story of swords.
The book is like impossible to sit on. Like, how do you sit on that shit in the book? Like, come on.
Like you have to climb some steps.
What was that scene where Viserys cut his finger or something, his ear?
Oh yeah, is that in this episode? Episode 1, where he
that
first
was in the first
himself?
episode, right?
Yeah, that's during the Daemon and Viserys throne room scene, but that's later in the episode.
Yeah. Oh, also in the Daemon and like when we first introduced to him, is this where he gives the necklace to Rhaenyra, and like the Valyrian necklace or something like that. And I adored that scene. I'm like, okay, there's some weird chemistry going on here. At this point, I had no idea about the whole Daemon Rhaenyra ship or whatever. But I'm like, he's putting on that necklace a little bit too close. What's going on here? He's the uncle, right?
Turn around.
What's going on here? So I was like, what's he cooking? Is something happening here?
What is he cooking?
So I was already like, okay, what's going on here? But their relationship is easily also my favorite part of this show. Love me some Targaryen.
What did you guys think of the opening, like the whole opening sequence and the narration, and then the leading into the Game of Thrones theme? Did you guys want a new theme? Because I kind of wanted a new theme from the show.
Good call.
Well, we kind of already discussed the counts on the prologue, but to your point about the theme,
forgive me, I wasn't here.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
But to your point about the theme, like I understand the decision behind like leaving it as it is, because why would you want to like fix something that is already perfect? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But
Sure.
I also like I wouldn't have minded seeing a new theme. There's an actual like how like the last like song, the last musical song towards the end of the episode, the Prince Who Was Promised, the song,
Oh yeah, yes.
That theme song. They make like a little bit more of an upbeat version in the credits for the second episode, and it sounds really good. Like it sounds like it could have been like honestly the opening theme song for the show. But
yeah, man, the music in the show, specifically the most recent episode, has been fantastic. I don't know why they just didn't make a new theme.
Yeah, I don't really
Iconic.
mind it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm sitting here watching it. It's like it's become so ingrained to us now. It's kind of like going to the theaters, watching the Marvel logo, Marvel opening again. It's like, oh, okay, you're comfortable. You know where you are now. You know where you're going to go see. So it's kind of in comparison to that. It's like, okay, I dig it. I understand it. It's still technically a Game of Thrones. We're all trying to get to the throne here. It's just a different context, of course. So
Yeah, I love the 100 or 500 years before Daenerys Targaryen opening. That shows.
exactly.
Chills,
yeah,
man.
just going a little prologue. Yeah.
What I will say about the opening, which is not in this episode, it's in the later episodes, but about the opening intro, is that I think the intro of the blood and going through Valyria, it's really cool. I just think it's kind of confusing. Like I still don't really fully understand it.
1,000,000%.
Maybe I'm dumb, but I don't.
I have no clue what I'm watching. I'm like, I think this is Alicent's blood. I think okay, there's more threads here, so this Rhaenyra's blood now. Sure, okay, cool.
Well, the book is Fire and Blood. I guess that might make sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like the aesthetic. I like the visuals. Yeah. I just don't have a clue what I'm seeing.
Yeah,
no clue whatsoever. Granted, the Game of Thrones opening is about like the is that like the orb in the Citadel or whatever it's called? I forget.
I
forget what it's called. But even then, that was slightly confusing until once I understood the context.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really understand it, but I don't mind. The music's good.
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about the setup for Alicent and Rhaenyra's relationship in this episode because this is arguably the second episode would be the last time we see them really being close with one another. But I think this episode really does give you that sense of one, like that like sisterly relationship that they have because they basically be like growing up together, and two, like as many people have pointed out, like it does sometimes seem like it's a little bit closer than that. And even more so in episode 2 when like Alicent, even though she hasn't been betrothed to Viserys yet, like she is already kind of like taking like the motherly stepmom role, like trying to comfort Rhaenyra
a little bit.
Yeah,
it's just so weird because they're the same age, they grew up together. It just must be so weird for Rhaenyra the whole time. I really felt like I understood Rhaenyra completely in that regard, and she really couldn't do anything about it, especially when Viserys chose Alicent, right? So
Viserys choosing
Alicent was
Alicent
just so good from them both.
Is that at the end of episode 1? Viserys choosing Alicent?
That's episode
2. Episode 2, yeah.
Oh, episode 1 ends with the whole like I want you to be heir, and the whole prophecy thing.
Yeah, that's episode 1.
Okay, but yeah, going back to your question or comment about Rhaenyra and Alicent, I love their dynamic. I think we're first introduced to them under the red tree. I forget what it's called. The Weeping Willow. No, I'm kidding. But and it's a beautiful scene. I love that set, by the way, that little backyard set with the tree and everything. That very cool. And yeah, like you can tell instantly. Like this again, I keep singing the praises, but this first episode, you can tell so much about the characters and their history together, based off of just simple exchanges, simple shots. And it's just really cool to see, and especially you see that with Rhaenyra and Alicent. They've been so close. Like Edgar said, they have like that romantic or sisterly vibe going on, and I really love it. It makes it even more tragic as their lives go on because they were the best of friends.
Yeah, I really didn't expect them because I didn't know what the story was heading from the very start. I really just didn't expect them to become enemies, man. That's like the last thing I expected. Their acting was so great, just having them as friends and stuff,
Yeah, I know. It's just. And I love the subtle characters, and I think Alicent is very subtle. I love the way Emily played her, just some of the little quirks, like the whole like scratching with the nails. I think that was in episode 1 a little bit.
Yeah, those close-up shots of that, those were really important. Like, I was wondering why they're showing that, and it makes complete sense now.
Makes complete sense. A little bit more timid than somebody like Rhaenyra. And I think episode 1 is when Aemma dies, and this is the episode where Otto says like, "Hey, go talk to the king."
Otto pulling the strings from the very start was fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so interesting. Oh man, there's so much to talk about because I like Otto a lot, and I like Alicent a lot. And what I liked, especially from the post-show interviews for episode 1, is like what is Otto thinking? Is he like immediately just trying to undermine Viserys? Is he the asshole that Daemon claims him to be? Or is he just trying to be a good hand or a good friend by saying, hey, go talk to Viserys. He might need you for support there. It's like there's some ambiguity there. I think overall, Otto is just like a conniving character, especially later on. But I think right now, it's just very interesting because people automatically were like, damn, Otto, what are you doing? Like, let this guy grieve.
Yeah.
Like, sending his daughter over there. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. Otto's like so much towards like his duty. And it's kind of like symbolic of the Greens in general. They're all about duty, and Rhaenyra isn't.
Yeah.
It's just.
I feel like his demeanor immediately changes the second his Viserys' wife dies, and he knows that he can't get a son, right? And he's like, immediately, I got to get us Alicent in the throne to get a son. So obviously, Rhaenyra doesn't get to the throne, and you can just see that conveyed through his small acting and stuff. Small hints at that.
He saw an opportunity and he took it, basically.
Yeah,
I do think on Viserys' side the whole time. I think prior to that. So
yeah.
Sorry, Edgar.
I do think Otto, there's a part of him that does love Viserys, maybe as a brother or something like that. I don't know, but at the end of the day, like how Daemon says it during the confrontation in the throne room, like he's a second son. He's not gonna inherit anything. He has to do whatever he has to in order to further his own line. Like, yeah, sure, like the High Towers are gonna like for come to his older brother, but like what about him? And I think it's like what Daemon says in that scene is honestly the entire truth. Like he's a leash, like he like be like there for like Viserys' like best interest. He's there for his own interest, and even if he has to use his daughter to get what he wants, like he's gonna do that.
Yeah, he can do anything at all costs. And yeah, he's using Alicent, and then this goes back to why I like Alicent so much as a character. Because there's a lot of reasons why she is the way she is in the second half of the series. And we see a lot of that played so well by Emily in episode 1 here. Just like she's nervous. She doesn't want to really. I mean, I don't think she hates talking to Viserys. Viserys is a cool guy. Sure, I'll talk to him. But I think she knows the implications of what Otto and her father want in terms of the whole sexual thing going on, as we'll see.
Yeah, and
and beyond.
And I think Otto, like his plan on page is a good idea. Disinherit Daemon, put Rhaenyra on the throne for a bit until the king has a son, and then we can do the whole succession thing all over again. He didn't anticipate for Viserys' like constant like holding on to his eventual decision of naming Rhaenyra. And at the end of the day, that's the one thing that really cost. He wouldn't have like said anything about it. He would have just said Daemon, be the heir to the throne. And he would have just done like stick to part of his plan with like Alicent and like still like marry their children, and then they have their son. Like it would have still been the same thing, but like Otto like disinheriting like Daemon, it's the one thing that eventually like that's why we're here. That's why there's going to be a war.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and it all comes down to it all comes down to like if Viserys never made that decision to say like, okay, Rhaenyra, you are the heir. Otto, you're right. Otto could have had a clear skies basically to do what he wants. But even then, Otto, like that's a risky plan to be like, okay, now that Rhaenyra's in there, I can get Alicent in here, and then I hope that things change later on. It's too iffy of a plan. And then he gets betrayed by Rhaenyra later on, as we'll talk about. So yeah, everybody's conniving because they know Viserys is so weak, so simple-minded in a sense. He always just wants to live up to Jaehaerys. He wants to live up to the peaceful ruler of the past like 100 years or so.
He doesn't want to. He wants to be remembered as the weakest of the kings, because that's probably what Viserys thinks he is.
And it's so tragic because he eventually is.
He'll never see a war. He never saw one combat scenario.
Yeah, he's gonna be remembered as a weak person. We take
Because
over.
it's racially motivated. We've got minorities in the show. We're on the show now.
Oh yeah, get a piece out.
But yeah, what else can we talk about here before we move on to the next thing? I mean, we can talk about
One
Damon's
thing-
like cup this whole situation with the flea bottom. You know,
One thing
You're cutting out there a
That's the
little
point.
You
bit.
can out Edgar.
Oh, can you hear me now or?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, a little bit. Sean, what were you saying?
Camera's frozen. One thing I really loved about the first episode was the whole jousting tournament. You know, it gave us some action scenes to look through, and it's our first introduction to Sir Kristen Cole, obviously.
Oh, we didn't
It
mention.
just put me
him.
back into
Oh, yeah.
that whole sequence. Just put me immediately back into the whole vibe of I think the second season of Game of Thrones, those jousting scenes,
It was
and
the
just the
first
whole
one, I think.
idea of the first one, right? And just the whole idea of what this kingdom is like, or what Westeros is like, the peaceful time. I love when we get introduced to Kristen Cole and he fights Daemon and he just like puts Daemon in his place immediately. And even Daemon, like we didn't even talk about the guard scenes, have we? The massacre shit.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you're
that was-
right. Yeah.
That was
a
what I
great
was mentioning,
sequence.
but I cut off.
Oh, the flea
Yeah.
bottom part. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was a brutal scene as well. We've seen
Mhm.
examples of Damon's brutality. But Sean, now that you mentioned the whole Kristen Cole introduction, my view of this guy 180'd. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, me too.
I'm
Me
like,
too.
okay, this show is
I hated
full
him at
of
first.
yeah, this show is full of crazy characters, right? It's like,
Mhm.
okay, I like Rhaenyra, but she's like, you can tell she's gonna be like disobeying the rules. Kristen Cole was positioned as a guy like, I'm gonna do what I'm told. I'm a cool guy, very handsome. I'm like, okay, this can be like the golden boy of the show. Okay, cool, whatever. We'll
Mhm.
see how he does. And I liked him in episode 1. It's just my view completely changed later on. But in these first
Yeah.
couple episodes, he seemed like a very great guy. It's crazy how one episode
Yeah.
can completely change your mind.
I
about a
really
character.
thought he was gonna die. I thought Daemon was gonna fucking kill him in the next episode. I felt there were genuine stakes. I didn't imagine him going on for that long. You know, after he humiliated Daemon like that.
Oh yeah. I'm very curious. I want to see a rematch between Damon and Kristen.
I
That'd
It's
be
been
very
10
fun.
years. You know, it's like I think you forgot about it.
That'd be
I'm
really fun.
interested if they would want to do that because from top of my head, I don't think there's ever like a real rematch between the two
Oh man.
in the books. But I mean, they can do whatever they want. They can change it. It's just like an outline of the book. So
Mhm.
Exactly.
No,
that's
I would love it. Like I want to see Damon versus, of course, we'll talk about it later on. But I want to see Damon versus some of these Targaryen or Alicent's
Children.
sons and children. Well, it's just so weird. It's like everybody's growing up so fast, even though Matt Smith remains the same. And it's like I'm trying to gauge like what's the age difference here? Now he's still like 20 something years older than these people, right? Presumably so. But they look the same age. Okay, whatever. It's a show.
yeah.
So yeah, that's gonna be interesting. But yeah, Kristen was really cool, really great introduction to him.
Mhm.
The first episode. But I think that's about it for the first episode, right?
I mean, we can talk about the obvious, the big obvious.
The prophecy, right?
The prophecy, yeah. I mean, for me, like I already knew sort of about this. A couple. It's not in the book, in any of the books, but George R. Martin, he was like doing like press for the book before it was released or something like that. And the funny thing is that he was talking about like, oh, like maybe people speculate in the books that Aegon the Conqueror came to Westeros because he had a vision of the end of the world going on because of the White Walkers or whatever. But the funny thing about that interview is that he's trying to like make it seem like we are the ones, like fans are the ones speculating when we've never thought about that again ever in our lives. So he like either intentionally or not, he kind of like confirmed that thing by himself a couple years
That's
ago.
fun.
But yeah, like seeing it play out on the show, I don't really think it hit me like how important it was until I saw it on the show. Because you hear it and you're like, okay, that's a cool little detail,
That's cool.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like you hear about like Daenerys the Dreamer who saw a dream about the destruction of Valyria, and that's why the Targaryens left, and that's cool. That's a cool detail. But once you see it actually play out here in the show, you're like, oh, wait a minute, like you like the history of this world, like it changes like that, like
Yeah.
like it explains a lot why a lot of these kings act the way they do. It makes you question if the reason why the Mad King went mad it's because he had a dream about the end of the world, and the whole burn them all is maybe not referring to the people of King's Landing, but it's referring to the White Walkers. So it changes like everything. And for me also, like, there's this theory in the books that the Doom of Valyria was an inside job by the Targaryens. So then you're like starting to like
Wow.
question like,
That is actually really interesting.
then you start like question like, what if putting into context this prophecy changes the history of Westeros? How would it change the history of Old Valyria if we were to like give context to that other prophecy with the Doom of Valyria? So you kind of like start playing with ideas in your head, but yeah, what do you guys thought about that? Like the whole Aegon the Conqueror stuff.
I'll go first. Yeah, for me, it's funny because for me, I'm watching this scene. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I didn't really think too much of it. Like, part of me, it fits so well that I'm like, was this not always the case? Because like the whole Aegon, the prophecy stuff, really didn't come into play for Game of Thrones until like what was that like season 6, 7?
Seasons, yeah, around the later seasons.
Yeah.
Like the later seasons. So this being added on to that, and especially to just the whole Targaryen history, like you said, it makes a lot of sense. It just instantly clicks. I'm like, okay, I wasn't even thinking about the Mad King, but I was just thinking about like the history of the Targaryens and how that's going to impact everything. I was just shocked that this first episode has such a close connection to Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
yeah,
I didn't
definitely
expect it to have any kind of connection to White Walkers or.
I think that's how they would want to bring it back, right? They would want to let like people who haven't read the book or know about this story to just kind of like be familiarized that this is a prequel to Game of Thrones. This will lead into the events that happen.
I feel like it's just so weird. It's also weird to me. I don't think it's a complete negative, but it's like this prophecy. I'm intrigued to see how it relates to what we've seen thus far. Like, do you guys think it's had an impact on anything we've seen thus far?
I think the thing about this prophecy is that one, this is kind of like it's like a piece of the puzzle for the books. So when I first saw it in the show, I didn't think about like, ooh, Game of Thrones. I thought about like, ooh, the ending of the books, because when you hear like the actual prophecy, how it's saying like, ooh, and if people are survived, like a Targaryen might sit on the Iron Throne or whatever, blah blah blah. And obviously that's not what happens in the show. And the thing about the prophecy is that yes, you can apply it to the show, you can apply it to the books. It's kind of a pick your poison type of scenario. I've seen a lot of people being bothered by it because like they start arguing like, oh wait, well, why does it matter if the one who killed the Night King was Arya or whatever? But like to me, like if you want to get mad about it, like that's cool. That's your choice. But for me as a book reader, I'm like getting excited of the possibilities because like even though we have seen an ending, we haven't seen the ending.
Good point there.
Truth.
Edgar. And that's like we mentioned it early on in the podcast, but that's why I love this show. It's much more defined by its prophecies, legacies, histories than Game of Thrones is. Like Game of Thrones, let's just be honest, like they don't care about prophecies. Like you just said, they had Arya kill
I think it's because we know where it's headed. You know?
They had
we know where the Civil War is going to happen and stuff. So
exactly, like they had Jon Snow do nothing during the war with the White Walkers. Like they didn't care, but this show does, and this show is leaving like thematically and like through the story is making an impact. And just like you said, the history of the show and the series and the books in general is leaving an impact. So that's why I like the show is diving more into that kind of stuff. So yeah, very crazy ending to the end of the first episode. I love that premiere. Yeah.
But if you guys don't have any thoughts, we can move on to episode 2.
Yeah. And the title. What's the title of this? Do you know?
The Rogue Prince, I think.
Oh, is it about Daemon? Oh,
yeah, the Dragonstone episode. Yeah,
this is Dragonstone. Oh, yeah, this is where he's hey, I got a dag. Come and get it.
That's so funny to me because you could tell that he did it just so Viserys could visit him, and then he doesn't show up. And
he didn't show up. That's so awkward. You got to be embarrassed by that. But Rhaenyra did show up, so I love it. Even already in episode 2, I was already itching for more Rhaenyra and Daemon scenes. I'm like, oh, Rhaenyra came in. Now the scene gets 1,000 times more interesting.
Yeah.
But I like this episode a lot. Yeah, I think this was like the second Sons bit at the end. I think this was this episode. We see more from Corlys, who is great. More from
He's great.
Daemon. But yeah, this. Do you remember how the first or second episode starts? Is there like a 10-year
with
time
the
skip in
crab
this?
with the crab guy, right?
Oh, crab feeder. Is that in episode
yeah,
2?
that's how it starts. I think.
That was the beginning of the second episode. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I'm more of a lobster guy, but okay, it's cool.
but yeah, like I think one of my biggest takeaways about this episode is how, even though Rhaenyra is the heir, she's going to be the queen allegedly. How she's like constantly being pushed aside to like the important decisions. How Sean mentioned the episode starts with the crab feeder about the triarchy, the problems at the stepstones, and like everybody's trying to figure it out what to do with it. Corlys is like fed up with like his men being taken hostage. Viserys won't do anything because that's his thing, not making decisions, even though that's his only job. Literally his only job, making decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then
I don't know what the fuck he was thinking there. Like, just go assist them, man.
Yeah, and then Rhaenyra, who is the only one who proposes a solution. She's like, hey, like, why won't you send us the dragon riders and deal with this, father, or whatever? And even though I get the point that Viserys is trying to make of not everything needs to be solved with violence, you still have to hear the girl out because it's not a horrible idea. And even a couple of scenes afterwards, how like Otto sends her away to like choose a new member of the Kingsguard or whatever. Like once she chooses Kristen Cole, Otto is immediately like, hey, like there's other people who are from better houses, and Rhaenyra is like, well, yeah, but how many of them have like battle experience? So yeah, I think that entire dynamic with Rhaenyra, even though she's put in a position of power, she's almost like powerless. So yeah,
big time. It's so interesting because at the end of the first episode, she is named heir, but when she's sitting on the meeting, she's just serving them tea. She's not doing shit, and it's so disrespectful, and it's a amalgamation of what, like Edgar was saying, it's about what the show's about, where Rhaenyra has a claim to the throne, but she doesn't. She still doesn't. She's still getting like socially. She doesn't have the social equity to like get people on her side, and that's mainly coming from her father, Viserys, who is just like not listening to her. Granted, I think the whole let's send dragons down to the whatever the
stepstones,
not the greatest idea. Like, you have all these nukes. True, dragons are nukes. Let's use them. But I'm like, we see how ineffective the dragons really are.
Yeah, in episode 8.
Stone where they can just crawl back into their cave. So I'm curious to see how that would have worked. But again, like Edgar said, you still got to hear her out. At least feign cooperation, right? It's just he names her heir and he's still dismissing her. On top of like her mother recently dying, it's just not a great look for their relationship as a whole. And it's something that he needs to work on, Viserys. I think he eventually does, but right there is just not a great look. And of course, like you said, the whole dynamic with Otto is very interesting. Otto and Rhaenyra, from these first 2 episodes, as we're saying, don't have the best relationship. She's like, oh, go fetch a Kingsguard. And then she like fetches the best Kingsguard in Kristen, even though he's an asshole now. But it's like he was still more qualified than 99% of those other guys. So she's showing us a lot of her leadership ability and her ingenuity that Viserys wasn't letting her illustrate or be shown, basically.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about Rhaenyra. She's such an active character in the show. She's not really like obsolete. Unfortunately, unlike Alicent, who I think wants to be an active character, is going to be a more active character. But in these first 5 episodes, Alicent is the opposite. She's the opposite. Even though Rhaenyra is the heir and she's getting pushed aside on the meetings, Alicent still has it much, much worse, where she's still having to just go talk to Viserys, and they have a good relationship, but it's just you still don't know if that's what she really wants. It's so interesting. You don't really. Allison never really talks about if she's like having fun or if she wants to do this, or it's never really explicitly said. Um, so yeah, what are your thoughts on Allison here, Edgar and Sean, about like this whole? I think this is the episode where she continues to go talk to Viserys and she's helping him with the model. I think she gives him like the present. Is that this episode?
The dragon, the stone dragon, the Legos.
So yeah, that was it's very interesting. I feel so bad for Allison in these first 5 episodes.
Yeah, and even then, like it makes it even extra awkward because Viserys is like, "Oh, you don't talk to Rhaenyra about our meetings, right?" And that alone is so fishy.
That's my best friend. It's like I guess I shouldn't because you're asking me, but I don't because my dad's also asking me. It's like this is awful. This is crumbling her relationship.
Yeah, but you were talking about we were talking about like how Rhaenyra helps choosing Cole, and this thought just came to mind how interesting decisions that people make end up affecting the other opposite team, maybe for better or for worse. Like Otto pushing for Rhaenyra to be named heir ends up biting him in the ass later. Rhaenyra choosing Cole as the Kingsguard ends up biting her in the ass later. Like it's very like interesting and like dynamics.
Yeah.
Wait,
it's all like waiting the long game. Everyone's gonna like pretty much playing chess, like plotting pieces and stuff, and that essentially will go into the future for 10 years and haunt them, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Did you say like Viserys having Rhaenyra be heir was against him? I don't think that was
no Otto.
Okay.
Otto pushing for Rhaenyra is the thing that's gonna affect him later on, and Rhaenyra choosing Cole as a new member of the Kingsguard is like gonna affect her later on. So it's
did Otto push for Rhaenyra in a sense?
After Aemma dies, he's the one who's like, "Oh, well, we're the one we have to name a new heir because like Daemon is dangerous or whatever.
We can't do Daemon." And he kind of put Viserys in a box where the only reliable one. Okay, that's your point.
Yeah.
So in a way, he's the reason. He's 100% the reason Rhaenyra is the heir, right?
Yeah, in a way, not 100, but like he's close. Like Viserys, I think Viserys was leaning towards that. I don't want to say Viserys was just like a piece of clay and Otto's just molding him the way he wants to.
Yeah.
But I think honestly, I think genuinely Viserys took the time to think about it and was like, you know what? I love my daughter, especially the way Rhaenyra was so broken up during the whole funeral for Aemma. I think he really did genuinely want her to be heir. Otto just did push it, and Otto's gonna regret that so much. It's just hilarious. Like you said, all these decisions are biting them in the latter half of the series, or we'll get to it episode 5. So yeah, very very interesting stuff here. I love this whole episode, but it's just like the building and the crumbling of relationships. And it's very tragic.
And you can see that also with the relationship between Viserys and Corlys, because then you have that conversations of wanting to push Laena, his daughter with Rhaenys, as the future queen that he should marry, even though it's weird. I don't want to sound like an idiot, but like on paper, it's not a bad idea. It would have been better than what he ended up with Alicent, but even then, like there you have another very interesting relationship, because like you can really tell that Corlys is just doing this because he wants to right the wrongs of Rhaenys not being the queen.
He is so built by that. And that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast. Like, was that Council of 100 or whatever, was that scene vital? Was it good? And I think it was, because it sets a lot of people up. We talked about how mainly it sets up Rhaenys and Corlys, but it sets up Viserys as well. And going back to Rhaenys and Corlys is defined by his wife being ignored, basically. And he's put that on himself, and he's put that on his family in terms of, I need a legacy now. He keeps saying we, the godly we, like, no, it's you. Just say it's you. It's okay. Just say it's you. But I love Corlys. Corlys is such a great character. I love the actor. You can tell he's having so much fun being Corlys. I could watch a whole show about Corlys. Wink, wink. Give me that show. So I love Corlys in this episode. And he's so right in terms of like, we have to focus on the stepstones. They are like they're very integral to our economy, basically, mainly his and the ships, but in general. And again, we get a glimpse of how Viserys is such a bad ruler, where he's like, no, I don't want conflict. I don't want dragons. I don't know. He sends Rhaenyra away. He sends Corlys away. Yeah, is this also the episode where, going back to the whole Lena thing, is this where Viserys says, but Otto, she's 12 or something like that? Or is that episode 3?
I know that's episode 3 with Aegon and Rhaenyra.
Aegon and Rhaenyra.
Yeah. But going back to your point real quick about Corlys, there's a really good line. I don't remember the exact quotes about the conflict with the Triarchy and Viserys not wanting to do anything about it. It's like when there's a coming storm, you can either sail straight or around it, but you never wait for it. And that's Viserys captured in just a couple of lines. He is the only person in the show who is just waiting for things to happen so he can make decisions.
It's so interesting. He's waiting for stuff to happen, and when it does happen, he makes bad decisions. He still can make a good decision to save his life. He's waiting for other people to make those decisions for him, and then he just goes along or combats it. Also, shout out in this episode to I don't think it's our introduction, but we get more from not the Tyrells. What's his name? The master who he really listened to, the guy who died in the fire, the father.
Lionel Strong.
Lionel Strong, my boy. Lionel the GOAT, honestly, for this series. Lionel did nothing wrong. He was very devoted, a very just guy. He's just very, very cool. Didn't do nothing wrong. He said his piece. He gave honest and good advice every single step of the way.
He's one of the good ones.
And what happens?
One of the only few good ones.
Taken away from us, just like Emma. We can't have good people in the show. You're either good or you turn gray, or you become Kristen. You become an asshole.
Yeah, and he's the only one who tells Viserys, hey, I don't know what you're doing, but if you marry Lena, it's gonna strengthen the realm. It's not gonna weaken it. And even though Viserys is give me good advice, he gives him good advice and ignores it.
That's what I said, right? He braves the storm, and then when it's time to make a decision, he asks Lena, or he asks people closest to him, and then he ignores their decisions.
Yeah.
Now, it's just crazy. Granted, I'm happy because I don't know if Lena would have liked that relationship, but she's so young. It was very weird. But then Allison's only 2 years older. So
is it that thing the king really can't make a decision without the hand's approval? It's kind of like a vice president kind of thing.
Yeah, Tyrion had a very good.
Yeah.
Tyrion had a very good hand comment from the earlier season. I forget what it was.
I think there's a line in season 1. I think it's from Littlefinger.
Okay.
The king shit so the hand can wipe.
Yeah,
something like that.
Fantastic.
That's a great fucking line. Holy shit.
And Otto and Lena have been doing a lot of wiping for this old crusty Viserys. But there's also
go ahead.
Just going back to it, we keep talking about it, but Patty Constantine. I think that's his last name.
Incredible.
Just amazing. I love this guy. When he got cast, I think he was in The Outsiders on HBO. And
I think so, yeah.
He was in some other things. And I was he was phenomenal in The Outsiders. But then seeing him here is next level shit. He is so fucking good. He's charismatic. He's just selling his role so good. If he doesn't get the Emmy, or he's easily going to be nominated, but I'm I want him to win, but he's going to croak soon. So hopefully he wins in season 1. So yeah, it's just I love his performance. It's lovely.
Yeah, he's fantastic so far.
Yeah, if there's anyone who deserves an Emmy for their performance in the show, it's him.
It's Patty. Give it to Patty. Give him a speech. Let him speak.
Yeah, but there's only really 2 or 3 other big scenes in this episode that I really wanted to talk about.
Sure.
First one being the Rhaenys versus Rhaenyra confrontation.
Ooh,
while Viserys and Lena are taking their walk, and how they're talking about how basically Rhaenys is telling her like, hey, like they're not gonna allow you to be queen, and Rhaenyra is just like
Fuck you.
like yeah, like fuck you, like they didn't choose you, but they're gonna choose me. And Rhaenys is like, no, like listen to me. What do you guys thought about this?
Great scene. It's so funny. It's like Rhaenyra's like, but no, I'm different. It's like, nah. Are you a girl? Yes. Then you're not different. It's not going to change. It gave me very much so TLJ vibes, where Luke's like, it's not going to go the way you think, and it's definitely not. I think even to this day in episode 7, Rhaenyra's like, I think even more so she understands like what she's up against, but at this point she's like, I'll be fine. I'm heir. But, like, but Rhaenyra,
she's fully set to her motives and her cause now.
Yeah, and Rhaenyra, you keep saying you're fine. You keep making these digs at Rhaenys, who is just trying to be real with you. Granted, Rhaenys, you can be a bit more respectful. It's like Rhaenys just like, they're not going to listen to you. Have fun. Good night. I'm like, damn. I just want to say hi. But yeah, so Rhaenys, that's pretty cool. But
yeah,
I think Rhaenys is going to be Team Black. I think so. So I'm very curious to see.
So, yeah.
I would assume so as well.
In the 6th episode, I think, right?
Yeah. I just can't see her with Alicent. And I think especially with Daemon having her children, she's going to have to. But grandchildren and whatever. So yeah, I'm very curious to see more Rhaenys and more of her relationship with Rhaenyra, because that scene is just so good and encapsulates them both, where Rhaenyra being very like aggressive towards Rhaenys being very real. She's a very real person. Whether she's talking to Rhaenys or Corlys, she speaks her mind, and her face says it all too. Very good.
That's a relationship that I'm really looking forward to getting developed with Emma Darcy now playing the character. I think it's gonna be very interesting moving forward with that. But what else is there to talk about? Do you guys want to talk about Dragonstone?
Let's do it.
Yeah, Dragonstone's a fantastic location. I really want to know where they shot it at, because
was that all green screen? Was that blue screen?
That was the volume.
I think that was
the volume. Yeah, that was the volume. That was the volume.
I've
been telling you.
I don't believe you. I don't believe that.
That was the volume, bro.
Lies!
The walking scenes.
Deceptions.
Walking scenes of
when they're in the bridge.
I can buy that.
Yeah. The bridge scene you're saying is all volume.
Yeah, the bridge scene with like the confrontation between Otto and Daemon.
So not everything on Dragonstone is the volume then, because those mountains do the one that the dragon was.
Well, I didn't say everything was on the volume. I just said like
just the scene in episode 2, Sean. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was like the whole Dragonstone.
No. Yeah, episode 2, just the whole lighting and everything, because it looks absolutely stunning.
And it looked like Dune, it looked like not Arcaris, the planet that they're on. The beginning.
Arrakis.
Not the desert planet.
Why am I forgetting
Edgar.
this? I know this.
How does Edgar not know? There's no way. This is your bread and butter.
Edgar has too much sci-fi fantasy in his head.
Caladan. There you go.
What is it?
Caladan.
There we go. Nice.
Edgar moment.
But
yeah, like fantastic visually, like the fog, like that Dragonstone is sitting on a volcano, so it makes sense that it's like so foggy, even though people were complaining about it. But that entire scene with the dragon arriving and the clouds moving, it's so
good. Fucking amazing.
I've always
said, when they first arrive into Dragonstone and you see the dragons come out of the clouds, like that shot design, excellent stuff.
Beautiful. And I've always said the volume can be very good if given enough time. Hardly anybody complained about Mando season 1. Or even Mando season 2. It just came up a lot with the Boba and Obi-Wan, which had rushed productions. And I think, if you take your time with the volume, and put some care into it, yeah.
I mean, Mando season 2, man. Look at the first episode of Mando season 2. That's peak volume. You cannot tell me that wasn't shot in Tunisia or fucking Yuma. It looks like it was shot on location, but it was all in Los Angeles. And the reason. I think I didn't even notice that House of the Dragon was on the volume is because it took its fucking time. So as long as the show takes its time, I have no issue with it being on volume or on a real set in a real location.
And a lot of
I I prefer a
Yeah.
big, show like this to be on location, like especially with those shots of Dragonstone and the
Yeah.
distant mountains and stuff. You're not going to get that kind of shot design in the volume. Definitely not.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why, but like a lot of their locations, they can't shoot there anymore. Like the actual bridge in season 7 of Dragonstone, I'm pretty sure that's real. They just couldn't film there this time around. I don't know why. I don't really know the details on that, but that's basically why they use the volume on this.
Mhm.
But yeah, but like going
Like a
actually to the
last minute
character,
resort.
yeah, going back to the actual like what happens in there. Such a good dynamic between Damon, Otto, Kristen Cole, Sir Crispin, everything so good.
Yeah, and it's just Damon, a great character study on Damon, who just really just wants attention. As I'm
Yeah.
watching
Is this
it,
the
I'm like,
episode where that
The
he
egg?
like marries that person in the club or something?
the white.
No, no,
Where he
no.
marries the lady.
My Saria.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think he ever married her. He was planning on it, but
Oh,
like he
planning
made
on it, right?
this big announcement just to like make Viserys go visit him. But
Exactly.
like, I still think it's fucking hilarious that like you can tell
Just
like
throwing a
I don't
drama to his brother.
yeah like we didn't really talk about it for the first episode, but like you can tell this guy adores his brother. If he wanted to be sit on the throne, he would have killed his brother a long time ago, but he hasn't. Why?
Oh yeah,
Because like
for sure.
he might be interested in power, but that's not his like sole existence why he's still here. Like he still loves his family in his own weird fucked up way. So
Twisted, demented way.
That's what makes Damon such a fucking-tastic character. He loves his family. He likes Rhaenyra a lot, as we'll see. And he likes Viserys. Even though he was disappointed that Viserys wasn't there, I think he had some fun with Rhaenyra. And Rhaenyra was a perfect person to negotiate, for lack of a better term, between Otto and Damon. Just try and like quell the situation. Simple. It also shines a light on Rhaenyra's leadership ability. How she was able to just, again, she's so active. She just flew her ass over to Dragonstone herself and handled the business by herself.
yeah,
Again, this is the same episode that she's serving drinks and Viserys like go off and do something else. Like she's actually putting, she's very active and she's doing what she has to do. But yeah, I like Damon in this episode a lot too because he really loves his family. And you're thinking like, what is he really trying to do here? Even I was a bit confused. Like, what's his end game here? And I don't even know if he knew about the end game. I think he just wanted attention. It could be just as simple as that.
yeah. I think going what you were saying with Rhaenyra coming in to save the day. She's basically the reason why blood is not shed in this episode.
Oh, big time! They're ready.
Definitely.
And it's the third time in this episode where she showcases that she's capable, yet people are still like undermining her. First one being her suggestion about the triarchy. Second one choosing Cole, and then there's this time with a Dragonstone, which not only serves her character and her journey as the heir, but it also like furthers her relationship with Damon, and there's even a little bit more of a tension between those two there. So yeah,
I really miss Millie Alcock. God damn it.
Hopefully, we see her back in season 2 with some flashbacks.
That'd be great.
I'm very curious to see how the Emmys goes. Like, are they going to get nominated with their older actresses? What's going to happen there? Or just not nominated
because
at
they're
all?
in more episodes, it just depends on who is chosen, right?
yeah. I'm pretty sure they're gonna go for some of the older actors. I think Olivia. I think if we were to talk about like
Cook,
locks,
for sure.
about locks, I would say Olivia, Patty,
The Greens? Edgar!
and maybe Matt Smith.
Maybe Matt Smith?
Hey, you know how the Emmys work.
I think Matt Smith.
Those three, I think, are the.
If Matt Smith gets snubbed, I'm leaving.
But yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be crazy. Yeah, but I think Olivia for sure. Olivia's just because she's a more established actress than mostly everybody else there.
Yeah,
but
it's so nice to see. It's refreshing as hell.
I need Emma. I need Emma to get nominated. I love Emma's performance right now. But yeah, so I really like the scene a lot. And was there one more scene for episode 2 you want to talk about? The end scene?
Yeah, like the big not twist, but like Viserys choosing Allison as his second wife.
Who was
Yeah, that
who
was
was he gonna marry
awkward.
again? It was the child, right?
Yeah,
The,
Lena.
Yeah.
Lena. Yeah, Lena. Sorry.
You can just see like Corlett like being all happy, like thinking that
Yeah.
like he's gonna be in power, and then he's
Mm.
just says Allison, and then he's everything just goes down. And I love like going back to Millie Alcock, like her performance, like her eyes, like of like just pure heartbreak there.
Betrayal.
Betrayal, yeah, that's a better word. Incredible. And even Allison, like Emily Carey, like you can tell like she does not want this. She does not want to be put in this position. She was put there by her father and Viserys technically for continuing the meetings with her.
And she has a guys it under her duty, and it's just
Yeah,
fucking horrible. It's miserable for her, really. She's in like the worst possible position she can be
She,
put in.
yeah, and that's what makes it so tragic because we're all like, "Oh man, Rhaenyra got betrayed," which she did, and is hurtful. But again, I think Allison is still in one of the worst positions because she's not active. She's the opposite of Rhaenyra here. She gets married without her consent, I believe so. Um, and then she has to get forced to just like have sex with this old man and get kids now.
Yeah,
Do what's expected of
really,
her.
really, really fucked up shit, man.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about episode 3, which was one of my favorite episodes of the series so far.
yeah.
Three is fantastic.
I love this episode. The beginning with the Triarchy, Damon just the poor guy like Damon, my prince, rescue me, and
Yeah,
then
what does he say? He's like, my prince, let's go. Like, and then he just gets stomped.
yeah, I really found that interesting though. Like it's not super like subtle, but like you can really tell like the bond between a dragon and a dragon rider there when Damon gets hit with like one of the fiery arrows, and then Caraxes like screams in pain too. Like that was really, I don't really think we saw something like that in Game of Thrones where Daenerys got hit and Drogon like reacted or anything like that.
No.
So it's really cool to see that here too.
Yeah, again, this show is much more mythical than Game of Thrones. So we're seeing little tidbits like that. Yeah, that was a fantastic introduction to
Yeah,
this
and this is the only scene where Matt Smith gets any lines, and he's only like yelling like Rayhard, come in, come out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna feed you to your crabs.
Yeah, Damon getting like not the best look there, like basically failing miserably during this, with just one dragon trying to do his best there, but not working. They just go back in their holes and hide.
Yeah.
But the rest of the episode is just impeccable. Great 2 halves of an episode. One, great character studies, and then the other being
A war
great
movie.
battle, a war movie. It reminds me of what's that one Andrew Garfield movie with the war?
Hacksaw Ridge or
Hacksaw Ridge, where great
Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah, love that movie. Great build up, and then the second half all war. And I felt like this was the same thing where it's like great character study on Alicent, Rhaenyra, Viserys, great character stuff, and then great war stuff. So yeah,
Kind
where
of
to
like
begin?
Andor in a way, just dialogue and world building, and then the action at the very end,
Yeah.
satisfy you.
Yeah,
Very
and
true.
this was the first episode where we had like a big time jump, because episode 2 is only like 6 months after the pilot, and this
Okay.
one is like 3 years after the second episode. Aegon has already been born. He's like 2 years old. He's like his name day or whatever.
But like, kill the baby now, do it before it gets too late.
But it's a really interesting dynamic between not just like the family, but like the Seven Kingdoms in Rhaenyra, because like you have like Otto's older brother and everybody else in the present in the that entire like sequence, whatever the camp. Everybody's just like claiming for Aegon, second of his name, like, and then Rhaenyra is just left on the other inside the carriage, just like to herself, ignored by not just her father but like everybody else. And I think that's a perfect way to like demonstrate like the relationship that she's gonna have to prove herself to the realm. So yeah, I think that's a really good start to like to her
That's the
character
scene
arc.
where she leaves like the forest area, and then Cole follows her through the forest.
No, that's later on.
Yeah, that's later on. But
Oh,
basically,
later on? Okay.
Same here. But another thing that's exceeding Game of Thrones is like the set design and the setting. Like this is an actual
Yeah.
hunt. And they've talked about
Yeah.
this. Like this is an actual hunt.
Yeah.
This isn't like the hunt you see in episode, what was it, 5 or 4 or whatever.
6, something like
6,
that.
something like that. In season 1 with the Baratheons, like just men walking on a stroll. Like this is extravagant. The whole kingdom's here.
Yeah.
And yeah, we get our first real taste of Rhaenyra basically hearing what Rhaenys was trying to tell her in the previous episode about how people won't respect you. They're singing Aegon's name, not yours. You get off the carriage, not a lot of people are cheering for you, even though you are the designated heir. That's what happens when Alicent gives birth to a son, because they see that. They're like, oh, boy, cool, I support you. Very tragic.
Yeah, everything about Aegon was planted. The seeds were planted from the get-go, you know? I love that. I love the foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And I also love, like, this episode is, like, not the final step, but, like, going back to Viserys' obsession with prophecy. He paid a price in episode 1 over his own wife. And then back in this episode with the entire, like, subplot of the White Heart and like being symbolic to Aegon's like second name or whatever, and him, like, I always view this in this episode as him wanting to find the White Heart to like prove that okay, maybe I should change the succession to Aegon, and it not showing up for him is like confirmation that like okay, I'm just gonna stick with Rhaenyra because like this is the right call. And even then later in the episode towards the end of that storyline, you see like the White Heart actually choosing Rhaenyra, so it's even reinforcing that she should be the one who should be in power later on.
Yeah, totally. It's like everything symbolically is pointing towards Rhaenyra, and as we keep saying in the podcast, Viserys is such an inactive character, so he's waiting for maybe the White Heart is going to help him make that decision, but he doesn't get it. He doesn't get the scene. He doesn't get what he wanted, and even when he gets like when he's killing the normal deer or whatever, he has to kill it twice. It's very messy.
Yeah.
So it's just an amalgamation of what his rulership, his leadership has been like. It's just not clean. It's messy. And he's doing what he's being told to do.
Yeah. And it also that entire scene with him killing the stag, like it really reminded me of like of Emma's death, like them holding her down so she could like be basically killed, and then you have this and scene paralleling that, and like members of the Kingsguard and Lannister soldiers or whatever holding down the deer so he could like kill it again. And it's not, maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not, but it's there for you to read it if you want to read it that way.
I totally think it's intentional because it's like he was indirectly / directly involved in Aemma dying. It was his decision, and then now he's directly involved with the stag dying. One was more physically direct, but it was still about his decision making, which is tragic. I just love the beginning of the scene of this episode. We're introduced to the main villain of the show, in a sense, in Larys Strong.
Yeah.
Crazy ass Larys, clubfoot motherfucker.
It's such a good introduction because like the way that they introduce him in this episode, you almost think he's like a throwaway character. Like he's not important at all. He's just there for the sake of being there, like just to provide a little bit more like, I don't know, background, like setup or whatever. But then you see that no, he's here to stay. He's here to play the Game of Thrones. So
yeah, I think it's very rewarding for people who are like us, who are fans. I don't know if a lot of casual people caught on to it, but it's one of those things that if you're a casual fan, even if you're a casual fan, it will give you a reward for rewatching this series and watching episode 3 and then watching episode 6, and seeing like the progression of Larys. And how he became more of a pivotal player. This Harwin's episode too. Was this Harwin's big episode?
Not Harwin's, but he's introduced here like at the end when Rhaenyra comes back from killing the boar. He's like smiling at her or something.
Yeah, he's like, like, good job or something like that. I don't know. His face full of blood or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kristen once again seen as a good guy here when Rhaenyra runs away, and I felt this was very cool, very much the mythological challenge. I talked about this a lot, and I've listened to a lot of podcasts about The Force Awakens when Rey gets the call to action with the lightsaber on Takodana, but she runs away into the forest like a princess, like Cinderella. Like I got to run away to the forest. I'm trying to escape my challenges, escape my burdens. And Rey has to come face to face with Kylo in The Force Awakens, that instant challenge. And in this sense, Rhaenyra is a princess. She runs into the forest, and she comes face to face with her challenge in the bull, boar. My bad. Face to face with a boar, and that's her challenge. Similar to how Viserys was the stag, and unlike Viserys, who had the thing held down for him, Rhaenyra is much more bloody, much more down to earth. Again, much more active. Where she, of course, with the assistance of Kristen, but eventually she's the one that stabs her like 20 times, like she's Ellie in The Last of Us.
She comes back to the camp dirty, and Viserys is clean.
Yeah, it's a beautiful difference, juxtaposition there.
And everyone looking at her and seeing that she really kind of, she's trying to prove her worth, and she definitely has at that point.
Yeah, she's trying to prove her worth, and I think for her, again, she's running away from it. She's running away from it all, basically out of annoyance, but also basically stemming from annoyance and anger towards like her position and the reception to her position. And I think she was even questioning herself. I think during that walk with Kristen, isn't that when they're talking about like their lives? I think isn't even Rhaenyra's like, I don't know if I really want this. Am I making that up, or is that how she's feeling there in that scene where she's like, it's not what she really wants? I feel like she said
that along those lines.
Along those lines.
Yeah.
But regardless, like Kristen tells her like how much his life was changed because of her, which was a very sweet scene. And then I think afterwards, she's proving to others and to herself that she is capable of being a ruler. She doesn't kill the stag, the white stag. She lets it go. Just again, more of examples of how good of a leader she is. I just love Rhaenyra. This whole character journey in a short time of 30 minutes was so good, so impactful.
Yeah. And this episode also, like, I know a lot of people early, before even the pilot was released to the public, I saw a lot of like reviewers, critics criticizing for it not being funny enough, not having humor and stuff. And this episode, honestly, like Patty, like he's so fucking funny. That entire scene
I was dying.
where he's like drunk and like
funny as hell.
talking with like Otto about like saying like, oh, maybe you should betroth Rhaenyra to Aegon, his brother, and so they can rule together or whatever. And his reaction is just priceless.
That's when he says Otto, she's 12 or something like that.
He's 2.
Yeah, he's 2. It's like that delivery, peak delivery. Yeah, drunk Viserys. If he gets an Emmy, play that line, play that clip, please. He's so good.
And also, like, this episode also introduces the idea of Laenor being married to Rhaenyra, when Lionel, again, being the only person with a brain in the King's Council, he's like, hey, like, I know you didn't listen to me the first time when I told you should marry Laena, but I'm gonna give you the same reasons why you should marry Rhaenyra to Laenor, because you need to like make amends with your relationship with Carlos, and that entire dynamic again, like he's the only constant person to give him good advice.
Exactly. Laenor coming in clutch once again, which was a great scene. This time he's braving the storm and making the right decision.
Yeah.
And I want to mention. Oh yeah, you go.
No, you go first.
Oh, I want to mention one of my other favorite scenes before we get to the war stuff is the campfire not with Rhaenyra, but with Alicent and Viserys. Beautifully well shot scene, and we're seeing the pain and anguish over Viserys. He's not just this one-dimensional character who's like the butt of a joke and can't rule right. He's struggling. It's very human. He's struggling. And I would hate to be in Viserys' position. This is a horrible position to be in. Nobody should want to be on the Game of Thrones. but he's struggling with what to do with his leadership and with Rhaenyra and how she's disobeying him, and he's talking to Allison for advice, and we're seeing that growth from Allison, who's giving some good advice. Just from human to human, and just like you're doing a fine job.
Scene where, I love that scene. Speaking of what you're saying, Evan, I love that scene where, in the camp, they're like, he's kind of like talking to Rhaenyra and screaming at her in front of everyone.
Yeah,
and everyone just kind of like looks at her like, what the hell are you doing, man? And then you kind of just understand what the whole kingdom kind of thinks of Rhaenyra now, like she's a spoiled brat or something. And just,
and Viserys is internalizing those thoughts. He's thinking about it.
And he was pretty drunk when he was doing that too.
He was pretty drunk, yeah. He was like, I had to yell in front of my daughter. Why is she disobeying me? I had this whole thing. He's toying with the sword, the dagger, which symbolizes the prophecy. It symbolizes the legacy. So he's thinking about his legacy here.
And he's also grieving about like him being responsible why Aemma died.
Yeah. So man, that was just I rewatched that scene like twice. I'm like, that was a good scene for Viserys. He's not just like a joking character. He's a very human character who, although he's making objectively bad decisions, like you can understand like the anguish that he's going through over the death of his wife. He now has Alicent, but then Rhaenyra's there too. It's just he's going around in circles. He doesn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, and I think for the first time at the end of this, at least for this part of the storyline in this episode, I think all of that entire like hunt scene sequence, at the end of the day, like finally helps him to like make a good decision that technically doesn't last for long because he later changed his mind in episode 4. But of him like finally like sending help to the Stepstones after talking to Allison, finally like agreeing to give Rhaenyra the opportunity to choose her suitor, her future king consort. So again, even though it's a short-lived good decision, it's still there.
But that's what I was talking about. Choice, right? And it took her a while to get him to trust him that way. So I love that dynamic.
Yeah, it's a great point there, guys. I've been talking about it, but like Viserys has been so disrespectful yet loving of Rhaenyra. He's had like this troubled relationship. Episode 2,
he just wants to hang on to tradition, but it's hard for him to do that.
It's hard because he's battling tradition versus his familial care and position as a father. And yeah, he was yelling at her during the event, even though he was drunk. He was telling her basically to piss off in episode 2 with the tea thing and the whole court stuff. But then in this episode, he's talking to Allison about like how much he still loves Rhaenyra. He still likes Daemon, and how he eventually decides like, yeah, I'm going to let her decide. I'm going to talk to Rhaenyra more. So he does care about Rhaenyra, and that relationship is going to progress for the better a little bit, much to the disappointment of Allison, who I think would much like it if they were more apart, Rhaenyra and Viserys.
Yeah, later on at least, because it seems that she's actually trying to like fix their relationship.
Yeah, right now. Which is why I like Allison right now. She's trying to fix their relationship, and she likes Allison, or she likes Rhaenyra. She likes Viserys. She wants them all to be hunky dory. Later on, of course, she is like, I shouldn't have done that, probably. But yeah, I like Viserys having that change of heart. It was very sweet.
Yeah.
Even though he's basically saying, you still got to get married. You got to follow tradition here.
But if you guys don't have any more thoughts about that storyline, we can move on to Daemon, who completely goes against the idea of don't shoot the messenger at the beginning of the scene.
We ended up getting one of the best fighting scenes of all time in all of Game of Thrones history.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I would say so. I wouldn't put it like up there with
loved it, man.
Like water, but yeah. Also,
at least top 10.
Easily top 10. Are there 10 big battles in this show?
I was gonna ask, is there 10 battles?
I don't think there's even 10 battles in this.
No, in terms of like Game of Thrones and this combined, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, yeah, for sure, top 5 because there's only 5 or 6. Anyways, yeah, I'm with you. It was so well shot, so well done, and just to build up to everything, we're introduced to Corlys. We're introduced to Corlys' brother, and yeah, Daemon beats up the messenger. no dialogue, but we read so much off of his face. Matt Smith is just impeccable as Damon here. You read so much into it. You can instantly tell, like, one of my favorite things here is the lip quiver. You get the lip quiver. I love me a good lip quiver. You got the same thing with Kylo Ren a lot, the little lip quiver where you're conflicted. And he's reading the letter, and part of him, again, because he loves Viserys, he loves his brother, he's happy that his brother's actually caring for him. But the more dominant side of his brain is like, fuck this guy. I got to do stuff for myself. I got to be the one here. I'm supposed to be here as a second son, basically, to show my worth here. And I'd rather risk my life. I'd rather die than have my brother come help me. Because this was a suicide run, basically.
Yeah.
He was so lucky.
Yeah, and that's like the payoff of the scene. We didn't talk about it at the end of episode 2 between Daemon and Corlys agreeing to go to the Stepstones to prove their worth as like people that like self-made people.
Second
but
son,
yeah,
great meeting.
Yeah, but yeah, this entire sequence is great. I think something that I would like to highlight is the character of Vaymond, Corlys's younger brother.
Okay.
The one that tries to like rebel against Daemon at the beginning. And I think it's really interesting because it like plants the seed of something that is gonna eventually like happen as the season goes on. And even though you kind of already kind of see it like play off in last week's episode with him like talking shit about Rhaenyra's like children and stuff. So that's a very, again, it seems like a throwaway thing, but it's not. It's gonna have a
I want to ask you, but I don't want to ask you like how much of a role this younger brother has. Because episode 7 is very funny. He's talking about like the blood of the water compared to the blood of the fire. I'm like, you ass, what are you doing here? What are you doing? And Damon laughing. I'm like, this is very much contentious relationship here.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see where that character goes. I don't even know his name again. What's his name?
Vaymond.
Vaymond. Okay. Vaymond Valerian.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And also we get the introduction to Laenor here. Our official. We've been talking about him a lot, but
Sunsmoke.
He's having a blast.
Woo! Yippee!
What's the name of the actor? Theo Nate, something like that.
Sure.
I don't remember. But anyway, he's great. He's having the time of his life on that dragon.
Yeah.
And the actual like fight, like it's so well shot.
So good. God damn. Like the rowing, the tension. You're like, what is he doing? What's gonna happen here? And then the way he places his sword up there, you're like, oh, he's about to go off here. It's like, let's go.
Yeah, man, and I love that. So good. And I love that. I know a lot of people are like taking this entire battle as a Daemon solo mission, but like if you really pay attention to what's going on in that war council meeting, he basically went ahead with like Laenor's plan of like send Daemon by himself, and then we'll come in at the end, and that's basically what happens. And
that's basically what happened. He kills a couple of guys, but it's basically the archers that do a lot of the work. The archers, the dragon, it's basically like the army surrounds them. Daemon's just a guinea pig here. He's just the prize, basically. And props to Crabsfeeder's actor as well. Just like the little tilt of the neck, like, so good.
You know what kind of reminded me too? Like, what are they called? The tethers in Us. Just
a little shaky movement. You're like, oh, that's so terrifying.
Yeah.
Good point there. Good call. But yeah, this scene just not much to say, but it's just so well directed, so well done. And this wasn't even Miguel, right? This was another director.
Yeah, it was somebody else. I forgot who.
I forget the name, but yeah, didn't mention it, but yeah, across the board, the directors of this series so far have been great. I especially loved episode 4 director. I forget her name, but she was really good. But yeah, this episode just floored me. I'm like, this is why I love this series, this world, because you get half the episode just building character, the other half brutal action, and it's all just as good as the other. We get so much in one episode, such a complete episode. And of course people are gonna be upset about the where's my boss battle between Daemon and Crabtree? Fuck off. You don't need no boss battle. Enjoy the TV show as you're meant to enjoy it.
And at the end of the day, it's the same thing. Like in the books, like it's just said that Daemon cut off his head and that's it.
This one he cut him in half.
Yeah.
Like if they made the Crab Feeder more like, if they set him up as a formidable knight or whatever, then I would be disappointed. Kind of like a la the Night King not having to fight with Jon
Mhm.
Snow. I'm like, come on.
I don't think
But
it was
this
that
time,
big of a deal. It was just more of like a plot device in a way. He was
exactly.
never meant to be a very important character.
Yeah, he wasn't meant to be
But I like that
important.
he
He was a
posed.
symbol.
I like that he posed a threat to the Targaryens and like the idea that if they fight him, they could go to war with other kingdoms and shit. I think that's what Viserys said, and that was the reason they couldn't intervene, right, in the first place.
Yeah, totally.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
really interesting stuff. I really do love the ending. Well, that whole scene where Daemon is just they finally get some help, and then he knows he's not going to die. I really thought he was going to die the whole time. I thought that was
No
his
way.
stand. Yeah, I don't know why. I just like was so convinced
That's
that he was
interesting.
going to die fighting these crab eaters, and I'm really happy he didn't. Obviously, so great stuff. I love that whole sequence so much. I was floored the first time I saw it.
Well, we needed it to get my favorite Daemon stuff in episode 4. Are we ready to talk about episode 4? Are you ready?
Yeah, episode 4.
That was a good transition to episode 4.
We have
Episode
Storm's
4.
End. We have Storm's End. We have Daemon returning to King's Landing. The Alicent stuff with Viserys. We have Rhaenyra and her night out.
Daemon.
This is
her fun night out.
Where do we begin? This is peak Game of Thrones. I love this episode. I love episode 3, but I might love this episode more because how sexy, crazy this was. I mean, of course, I'm a huge Reagan. I'm a huge Rhaenyra and Daemon fan, and I love their relationship. And just that shot of Daemon returning with that haircut.
Yeah. Then the sword on the chest.
The sword on the chest. Yeah. It's a great return. And before that,
he had shorter hair and stuff, right?
Yeah, he has shorter hair. He's wearing the crown. Before that, he bashes the ship.
Was it about a year later?
I feel like either 6 months ish. I think might be a year, but I'm not entirely sure about this time jump actually.
Yeah. Oh wait. Okay. Yeah. So much happened in this episode. Oh my gosh.
Because the first 4 episodes, there's about 1 year difference in between, right? Or is that?
Episode 1 to 2 is 6 months. Episode 2 to 3 is 3 years. Episodes 3 to 4 might be between 6 to 12 months, I think.
Yeah, because Rhaenyra had to get the quote unquote world tour for her.
Mr. Worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide.
Ocean to ocean.
Ocean to ocean. All the husbands come to the floor. Not great. We'll talk about that in a second. But I just love Daemon's introduction here, coming in all boss with his crown of crab feeders. He gets the sword at his chest, and he's just like, "What the hell?" And then, of course, Viserys welcomes him with open arms. And I just love Rhaenyra's reaction to Daemon coming back. She's so excited. It's just the first of many great Rhaenyra and Daemon interactions.
Even though it's such a simple line, I'd adore it. It's one of my favorites of the show so far. When he takes the hammer and he's add it to the chair.
So good. Add it to the chair. Yeah. So good. But yeah, before that, we can go real quick to the
Storm's End.
Storm's End, Rhaenyra's suitors. Storm's End is the Baratheons?
Yeah.
Okay. With the Baratheons. It was just very funny. Not much to say, but it's just Rhaenyra obviously being disinterested in basically everybody coming up to her. She hates following this type of tradition. Of course, she was pushed for Laenor last week, but in this one, she got the choice. So she's going to go through all the choices here. Doesn't really like much of them. Again, at this point in the story, I'm thinking I like Rhaenyra and Daemon, but are they veering toward Rhaenyra and Kristen? Is that going to be a thing? What's going to happen here? Never ends up happening, of course. But yeah,
when Daemon ditched her, at that point I was like, "There's no way she's not going to go to Kristen," and I kind of wanted her to be with Kristen.
Me too. Point. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I still like Daemon. Yeah. I get why Daemon did that. We'll get to it, but yeah. But yeah. So I also find it again, like Edgar said, the show is very funny. We're seeing the Blackwoods versus
the Bracken.
The Brackens. Little kid ends up gutting the older guy who keeps laughing at him. Beautiful shit. Love it.
Yeah. Very also cool introduction to a little issue that eventually comes up later in the show and even in the latest episode episode 6, I think, when they're talking about like in the council about the Brackens and the Blackwoods just finding excuses to kill each other, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like it's a it's mostly a like a comical introduction to the show to this episode, um, which we later on get onto the actual meat of the show of the episode.
A lot of meat in this show.
A lot of meat. I also love like the Viserys just genuinely happy to be reunited with his brother, like him
Yeah.
joking about like Allison's like, "Ooh, do you want to see the travesties?" and shit like.
Oh yeah, look at this girl. What is she's crazy, right? Yeah. Remember back when we were children, you were crazy. Ah, the good times. The good times. We also get one of my favorite Damon hair looks. He looks incredibly handsome in this in that scene. Our hair all slicked back, which is very funny. Compared to like his ragged self in last week's episode and the beginning of this episode.
Yeah. And also in this scene we also get like Rhaenyra kind of wanting to like make another like do amends with Allison in here in the scene.
What with Allison?
Like fix up her relationship with Allison, basically, like supporting her, like backing her up after being the center of jokes.
Yeah, she's like, I understand your predicament, basically, right? And yeah, their bond grows closer. Forever short it may be, their bond grew closer in that scene, which was great. But yeah, then we get like Rhaenyra walking up to Daemon. I'm like, oh, man, let's go. And then we get the Valyrian. They're talking with each other. It's been years since they've seen each other. And it was just a great meeting. I love everything about this episode.
Yeah.
It just
they
so
first
whimsical.
talked to each other in Valerian, right? That's when they.
They talked to each other in Valerian.
Yeah.
Is the scene after this when they're talking to each other by the tree alone?
Yeah, it's the same scene.
That was amazing.
It's the same scene.
That shot, like out of focus shot, then.
Oh my god!
Oh,
gorgeous!
Yeah,
I wish I could pull it up. It's one of my favorite shots where it's just a wide shot of Rhaenyra and then Daemon right here, just like looking at each other.
Like even the fucking they could have had such generic over the shoulder shots, but they always have these low angle ones where you can see their hand and then their entire body, the hand of Daemon and then Rhaenyra's whole body, and then it switches back and forth. Like really interesting fucking cinematography overall with the show. They don't go the easy route. They take their time with this stuff for sure, and I love that.
Yeah, they do some unique shots throughout. And already
everything
thinking,
has creativity, you know.
Yeah, and already you're already thinking like, what is Daemon thinking here? It's like I know the writer said at the end that Daemon's really trying to. Now that he's back in King's Landing, he's going to try to use Rhaenyra to get closer to the throne or whatever. But I think there's genuine feelings growing for Daemon, at least, and Rhaenyra especially, during her sexual awakening, per se. So I love their dynamic. I can't speak enough praises about them.
Yeah, and then you have Rhaenyra like having her sexual awakening, and then you have it like contrasted with Allison being called like at 3 a.m. like
disgusting.
So sad. And, like,
so sad.
It's just like horrible. And that scene just like capsules like why she becomes the person that she eventually becomes. Like she's like alone. Like her dad is still there, but she's like by herself. Like she doesn't have anybody to like.
She was cornered to having no choice, you know.
Yeah, she has no choice. She has no agency. She's a recipient of Otto's orders. She's a recipient of Viserys' children. She's a recipient, basically, of the traditions of the kingdom.
She's an object at this point. It's like a stepping stone for them.
Yeah, and this is something Cersei, has talked about in Game of Thrones, where it's just like, as a wife, this is our duty. And of course, Cersei, following a similar line than Alicent, it's like these people who have no agency now are seeking agency through villainous means. But you understand where they're coming from. We love to hate Cersei. We love to hate Alicent, especially Olivia Cook's Alicent too. It's like they're so.
Do we?
The beauty I do, because the beauty of both their characters is like we know where they came from. Of course, Cersei's introduced as fucking her brother, so you're already like, whoa, what's going on here? But for Alicent, even more so, we understand Alicent. Thank God for these first 5 episodes, because if we just were introduced to,
if we were just introduced to, you have to have the background.
You have to have the background.
You have to have her original. You have to have the younger actress. You have to do that.
We had to have that,
especially because of just how much you know so much about the relationship now, and it just puts emotional stakes going into the Civil War eventually, right?
Exactly.
Especially the scene where we're in episode 6 between
Mhm.
their sons fighting. Like it's fucking tragic, honestly. Seeing where they came from as friends to seeing like their sons,
where they are now.
doing all that shit to each other.
Yeah, and it's just a spiral. It keeps going. And yeah, like Allison is the recipient of all of this. She's following tradition to the negative effect of her mental health here. She's not happy having these kids. Eventually, she comes to love her kids, of course. She's a mother. But it's also just like she didn't want to be in this position. And she's following all these rules, and Allison isn't. The speech that we heard in episode 6 really comes, or episode 7, really comes to play here, where episode 7 she's yelling about, I do all this and you do all this. It's true. Like Rhaenyra is just objectively breaking more rules than Allison. But we like Rhaenyra because, well, she's Rhaenyra. Like she's more active, she's more fun, she's much more engaging character. And of course she doesn't try and slash a kid's eye out. But that's a different story. but it's just like Allison's not breaking as nearly as much rules as Rhaenyra does. Especially, and it all starts in episode 4 in a sense where she's unfortunately having sex with a guy who's dying in Viserys.
A living corpse.
Living corpse, and her expression when they're having sex is just so tragic. She's just no expression.
She's like, "What the fuck am I doing right with my life?
What the fuck am I doing?" There's a scene where she's holding, I think it's Helena against the window. Helena's just bawling as a baby, and Allison's just expressionless.
Not knowing what to do, which is a really cool like detail when once you see like the daughter like grown up, like you can tell like they don't really have a close relationship. They have like a really awkward relationship, and that scene in the window with the baby, like it's a really cool like way to like foreshadow that later.
Yeah. And you can tell she didn't want to go. Obviously, she doesn't want to go fuck him because she's like, can we not? I'm just like, trying to sleep. But your king wants to see you now, and she's like, fuck.
It's so stressful. She's hit with all these stresses. The king's wishes, the stresses of having like 2 to 3 children now. And again, she's only like 17, 18, 19, whatever in this scenario. So she's still young. She's still, and that's why I love episode 4. Like, in comparison to Rhaenyra, who's having this sexual awakening, she's having her growth through adolescence. That's gone for Allison. She didn't have that time to grow up, have that sexual awakening, or grow up like a normal teenager, go outside like Rhaenyra does, have fun at the bottom of King's Landing. She can't have that. Allison is stuck.
And that definitely
that
plays a part
castle.
to why Allison. That definitely plays a part to why Allison has this feud with Rhaenyra now, personally.
Yeah, and again, it's so understandable. Yeah,
and also you also have to like take into consideration that Allison is constantly following the rules and she's being punished for it, and Rhaenyra is like breaking the rules and she's being rewarded for it. Whether you stand on one side or the other, that's a different question. But at the end of the day, like here, like that's
true.
That's the reason.
Yeah,
that's the reason why the conflict is so interesting and it's so like powerful, and why we eventually see Allison do what she tries to do in last week's episode is that entire like conflict of like, I did my duty and I'm still like being, my voice doesn't count, basically.
Yeah, my voice doesn't count. She doesn't have a voice. She's stuck in where Rhaenyra was in episode 2, basically. It's like just not having a voice. And eventually she is, because basically she's running the show over Viserys' old ass. Especially in last week's episode. We'll get to that. But yeah, it was just very funny. Or not funny. It's very tragic seeing the comparison between Rhaenyra and Allison.
No, it's funny.
It's illustrated so well in episode 4, which is why I love episode 4 so much. We get so much from Allison, so much from Millie and Rhaenyra. It's some great stuff. Well, let's talk about that whole night on the town with Rhaenyra and Daemon, because I love everything about this scene.
I want to point out something real quick about that.
Sure.
I love that there's planting the seeds of the secret passages of King's Landing, because that's gonna be a big factor, probably season 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes complete sense. Didn't even think about that.
And like here, it kind of like it happens and you kind of forget about it, but it's something that they're already like.
Are you
letting
teasing? Are there going to be fights inside King's Landing? Like, are we? Like, that's what I'm most interested about House of the Dragon, right? Like, I'm very curious where these fights are going to be happening. Like, are there going to be like assassination attempts inside the castle? Because yeah, Edgar mentions the whole secret passageway. We see it again in episode 6, when Rhaenyra listens on like Harwin Strong and Lionel.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely shown numerous times in the series so far. I'm very curious to see where it leads. Edgar is teasing me like a little bitch over here. Like I can't wait for season 2.
Stop the teasing, Edgar. Stop.
I know, right? Yeah, I'm very curious to see where the conflict goes.
Yeah.
And the more I think about it, the more I just genuinely feel like especially with King's Landing, everything, the way they showed like the average people in that episode where they're going to like that brothel area. I fucking love that whole scene where they're just walking through the downtown area and she's like experiencing what peasants have to deal with. Her whole like as born as a princess, she really doesn't have anything to complain about in a way because she's born to royalty.
Yeah,
but she also doesn't have the luxury of choice. But she thinks she has it so hard because she doesn't have the luxury of choice when she could be having a way worse life as a peasant, you know.
Yeah, and it's also a great scene because then we have the sequence between her and Daemon watching the play and how the common people view like the
how
monarchy.
They react to Rhaenyra.
Not just Rhaenyra, but the monarchy in general, and how they're like making fun of her and like not taking her seriously just as much as the rest of the 7 kingdoms. And
also, yeah, real quick, I also like how this scene reminds me. Have we all seen Avatar: The Last Airbender here?
Yeah,
of course.
It reminded me of season 3 where they're watching the Fire Nation play about all their characters. Yes. Like, this is not how we act in real life.
That's so fucking cool.
And Game of Thrones really doing the same thing here. Is like, hey, this is Rhaenyra, and they all look like very ugly caricatures of who they actually are. It's just very comedic, but very effective too.
Yeah, and it's also it's very effective because of Rhaenyra's reaction, she's like, well, why should I care about what the people think? And Daemon, out of all people, Daemon is like, well, maybe you should care because they're the ones who you're going to rule over, which
he's smart.
He's smart. He might be an asshole, whatever you want to call him, but he is like, he knows how to play the game.
Yeah. Yeah, he's so skilled at it. Yeah, so he's teaching her, but he's also trying to seduce her in his own Daemon way.
Daemon way.
So yeah, I just love, like Sean mentioned, I like the way they shot Rhaenyra going through the town. Just that whole, again, whimsical feel to it, where she's just like, you see the smoke effects, the expressions on the people in King's Landing get very weird, fire breathing guy. It's just very like extraordinary.
Is that like her first time going outside in King's Landing and seeing what people like live like?
I think it is. At night, at least, right?
At night,
probably
yeah.
Yeah, like in like that specific area where there's like really poor people and just, you know, the average day person, I guess. Right?
Yeah, we've seen scenes like that in Game of Thrones. Like, for example, when Marjorie like tries to like give food to like the kids like event.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
It reminds me of that. Yeah.
But yeah, during the night, I don't think we've seen scenes like this before in King's Landing, at least. But yeah, like. You guys want to jump into the brothel sequence?
Please, the scene was amazing.
Go for it.
I was like, what is happening? I'm like, what is happening? But I like it. I dig it. What's happening? Oh my gosh, what's going on? This was crazy. It was way more than I expected. Wow. So yeah, they're going to the brothel, and Daemon. I forget who's the first one to kiss. It might have even been Rhaenyra. Because she's so excited and adventurous about this whole endeavor. So yeah, she instigates a kiss, and Daemon, of course, is egging it on. And it gets very sexual. And then Daemon pulls out, basically. Like, it doesn't go anywhere. I think their pants get taken off, but it doesn't really go anywhere besides that. Which is just very surprising to me. I'm like, Daemon, what are you doing? What's happening here? Like, what stopped him? Like, because Rhaenyra is getting progressively more excited about it. She's getting very intense, and Daemon's like, "Whoa, I'm not ready for this." Basically,
yeah.
I didn't understand it at all when I first watched it. It took me to rewatch the scene.
It took me
watching the behind the scenes, like having
Yeah.
Ryan talk about it. I'm like, because I was like,
Yeah.
for me, Damon wanted this to happen, but he is the one that pulls away. Why?
I think
Yeah.
I think how he
Yeah.
explains it is that basically Damon came to King's Landing to cause chaos as a payback for like being exiled
Yes.
by
Yeah,
Viserys,
that's definitely his
and
intention.
and once he gets the opportunity to get his payback, he's unable to do it because like at the end of the day, like I think he cares way too
He
much
cares
about
about
Rhaenyra,
Rhaenyra.
to do what a lot of people think he eventually did later on in the episode.
Yeah.
Funny story,
yeah.
by the way. I was
Uh-huh.
watching this. The first time I watched this, it was with my aunt
Oh no.
in New Jersey, and we just had to forward the whole thing because it's just really weird to watch with this other person.
You fast forwarded it?
Specifically, Game of Thrones. Originally, yeah,
Sean!
we got. My aunt didn't want to watch it. Okay.
Oh
Well,
no.
she loves Game of Thrones. It's just weird watching it with them. And then, of course, I went back and watched that scene for purposes, of course.
For research.
But yeah, for research intentions. But yeah, no, it was a
hilarious.
really well made scene.
It was a really
Rhaenyra's,
well directed
like,
scene.
innocence. Oh yeah, for sure. It was just so interesting to see like Rhaenyra, how like she like wanted to fit in to like the whole brothel environment, right?
Mhm.
And then Damon just knew what he was doing the entire time, right? It felt like he had no regrets.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Until it got too much for him.
Until a certain
Yeah.
point, right.
And that
Oh,
entire scene also is it's shot very well. Not just cinematography wise, but like they really do put you in like
lighting.
Rhaenyra's like
It
shoes.
really puts you with the low angle. Yeah, you have like a low angle shot, so it's like you're from Rhaenyra's perspective.
Yeah, but I don't even.
And everyone's
really...
like staring at the camera in a weird way, and
yeah,
they're
but
passing by and stuff.
Yeah, but I don't even really mean it like as that. I mean it as Game of Thrones. A lot of times was accused of overusing sex scenes and being way overly explicit, and here it's very much not. I mean, there is like sex happening in the background, but it's way more like contained. It's way more adult even. It's not too overly shocking. It has like a purpose in the story in Rhaenyra's arc, in Rhaenyra's like journey of like sexual awakening, and it really does have like that. I know it's been thrown around in the internet, but like it really does have like that like female gaze. Like you really do feel like you're in her shoes. You're not in Damon's. You're in hers.
Yeah.
I was going to mention that exact same thing. I love that you said that, Edgar. It's 100% shot from her, and that's why I'm so happy they got the woman director. I forget her name, but yeah, I'm
Claire Keilner, I think.
Yeah, I think she did this and episode 6 or 7. One of those.
She did a episode. She's doing this episode. I think she did episode 5, and I think she might be doing episode 9. I'm not sure.
Okay, but she's great.
Yeah,
she's definitely one that I hope.
Yeah. She hit it for sure.
I hope they get her back for season 2. Keep the talent. But yeah, I like I said, I love that everything is from Rhaenyra's perspective. So yeah, and then she goes home, and she's still feeling very much, she's still very much like wants to have some sex. She still has that itch. And the first person that she
needs to be
sees,
scratched.
definitely. And Kristen's right there waiting for her. I don't think he's ready for what's about to happen. But yeah, he becomes involved in all this.
Yeah.
Again,
going back to the whole like how it's shot again, it's not overly explicit. It's just like it almost comes across as almost like cute. like their scene is like cute.
And they're like actual boyfriend and girlfriend,
and you actually feel for both characters. It even like furthers your feelings towards Cole into liking him, even though we know what he becomes later on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that entire sequence is really well done. Really awkward. Like after morning, you can kind of tell that Christian Cole is kind of like not vibing with it, sorta, kinda.
Yeah, I mean, he goes against his duty. He made the pact to not have sex, basically, and he goes against that for Rhaenyra, which is tragic.
I know we're going into a different episode right now, but I don't know how the fuck Allison got that out of him. It wouldn't take like Batman to get that out of me, man.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you're a different person. I mean, he gave his life to the Kingsguard, or to
Mhm.
what is it? What is he? Is he the Kingsguard?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kingsford.
Kingsguard.
Yeah, he was
gave
the
his-
he was the
he
commander of the Kingsguard, right?
Yeah,
Of that
he gave his
one-
No.
life to this.
Oh,
He's
no,
not the
he was just
commander.
the-
No,
sorry, he was the protector, the knight of Rhaenyra. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like his her personal guard.
The commander is
Right.
played by the homeboy.
Yeah,
What's
he's
his name?
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
Fuck,
I
what's
know
his
who you're
name?
talking
He's
about.
good. He's like in every fantasy thing ever.
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
a great actor. I know
Um,
who you're talking about.
Fuck,
He's in.
forget his name.
Let me get it.
Thank you. I
Graham-
totally- Grant
Graham-
McTavish.
Yeah,
Grant McTavish. His voice is just
Yeah.
godly.
in The
he's great.
Witcher as Drixter.
Yeah. Yep. He's in The Witcher. Witcher High. We could do a Witcher podcast one of these days. Probably prior
Yes.
to.
Wait, Witcher trilogy, Edgar. Witcher trilogy.
Yeah, we gotta do this prior to what we get Blood of the Moon. This whatever Blood.
Yeah.
Blood of the Elves, whatever. It's
When
called.
is that out? December, I think.
December 31st. End of
Yeah.
December.
Oh man, that's gonna be a great show. Great.
Can't wait. Only 4 episodes.
Have you played Wild Hunt, by the way, Evan?
No, boy.
Oh my fucking god!
I know. I'm sorry. See, quick tangent, but it's just like I'm always interested in playing The Witcher, but then I realize it's such a big commitment, and if I'm playing The Witcher, I can't be playing all these like God
You
of
really
War.
can't play another game.
God of War comes out in a month, so I'm going to focus on that.
Yeah.
Dead Space
Focus
is
on
coming out
Ragnarok and then
soon.
after the Dead Space.
It's
But
just too much.
definitely understand that it is one of the best games.
I know you
ever
keep
made.
hyping it up, Sean. Jesus
Please.
Christ,
It's
keep
my
sucking
favorite
on
of
the
all time.
Witchers. I know.
It is. It really is the best game ever made, man.
Okay.
I will
Back
not
to us.
back down from that.
But yeah,
Back
back on House of Dragon. So yeah. Kristen's very much like you can tell he's very upset about what just happened.
Yeah.
Not upset, but just awkward.
Yeah.
What happened after this scene?
Basically the entire first of all, something that we didn't mention during the brothel scene is the
Mhm.
little kid spying Damon
Yes.
and Rhaenyra, which he later on reports back to Otto. And then the entire rumors, the scandal between Damon and Rhaenyra happens, and I'll let you guys talk about that real quick. I'll be back for
Another scandal.
Yeah, this is very
Yeah,
interesting.
I loved when the rumors started circulating and everyone just trying to figure out, what the fuck is going on? And Otto clearly is the first person to figure out, right? Because of that boy who paid what
Well,
was that boy's like?
That's
motive, by the way?
episode
Curious.
5 more so.
Okay, but
but
how did the
ep-
rumors start circulating that?
It starts in this episode 4. It starts out more because when they go into the brothel, like they take their hoods off, which is always weird to me.
Right,
Like,
right.
is Damon in on this plan? I think by this point it's been debunked that he had anything to do with this plan.
Mhm.
I think it was just innocent there. But yeah, the boy brings it over to Miss Sardia, Damon's. I wouldn't even know what to say.
It's
she is to Damon.
her.
Not
They
ally,
call her
but not
her
friend.
whole, right, or something.
Yeah, I don't want to say that, but yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I don't want
this
to say that either.
that's what Damon calls her. Not a great
Yeah.
relationship, but she does come in.
Unlikely companion.
Unlikely companion. Very good, Sean. Thank you. And even then, are they really companions? But yeah, so she kind of saves Damon here, right? Because the next day,
Mhm.
the rumors start spreading, and I think it's this episode where Damon is like laying down drunk, and Massaria tells him like,
That
just like
that
cool it
cot
off,
that he was in.
basically. Yeah, that
Mhm.
little cot downtown or whatever. Meanwhile, crap, I wish Edgar was here because I forget what happens in episode 4 and episode 5. But I think
episode.
this is the one where like is this one where Allison's pleading to know what happened right near like, hey, tell me what
and
really
then
happened.
and then he's underneath the red tree. I forgot his name. Why am I forgetting his name?
Laris?
He always tries to get Valeris, right?
Isn't it episode 5 though?
Yeah, that's episode
I think
5.
it's episode 4. Isn't it episode 4?
No, it's episode 5.
They figure out that Rhaenyra.
No, that's episode 5.
tried to fuck in episode 5, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But see, Edgar, I was confused because like I know the Mysteria stuff happens in episode 4 where she's like basically saves Damon in a way.
I mean,
But
I think he
what?
just crashes at her at her
He
place.
crashes at her
But
place. Which
it seems like right now Missaria is working for Otto. That's what, at least the impression that you
that's the
get.
impression because she's the one that tells the kid to go to Otto to tell him about.
Yeah, and because the
Rainier.
kid comes in that morning, like giving her something. I don't
How
know.
does that effectively help Damon's predicament?
That's the big discussion during that with that
Okay.
episode is that if Damon purposely set that up to expose Rhaenyra or not.
I'm
I
so
don't
torn
think
about
that.
that. I don't
Yeah,
think that's
I
the
don't think
case.
that's the case. It doesn't
I
seem
No.
don't.
to
That's
me.
definitely not the case.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
He is.
But
Yeah. He
it just
loves his
seems
family.
also like in this scene, like
But he had to
Damon.
think when they took their fucking hoods off that
That was so
Rhaenyra's
weird.
gonna be
You took
seen
the
by
hoods
somebody.
off, but
Yeah,
then
Because people probably don't know what Damon looks like anymore because it's been years since he's been in King's Landing.
True.
So with Rhaenyra being the princess of the entire place, people definitely should know what she looks like, right? And
yeah,
yeah.
it was just very weird.
I mean, the hair gives it away.
Granted,
exactly, it's just Targaryen hair, ashen hair.
granted, if that kid wasn't there, I think they would have been fine. But it just so happened that the kid,
Yeah,
the
fuck that
spy,
little
was
snitch
there.
bitch.
Wow, was there. So yeah. So is this the one where like Allison's begging Rhaenyra to say what happened that night?
Yeah, she's basically like
Mhm.
telling her to like
Tell
confirm
the truth. Tell the truth.
yeah, confirm or deny the rumors. And I mean, pulling a classic Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rhaenyra is like, well, it didn't happen. Technically, it didn't happen,
From a
but
certain point of view,
from a
yeah.
certain point of view, I mean, obviously she did end up having sex with somebody, but it just wasn't Damon.
Mhm.
But yeah, that entire dynamic is pretty interesting too. Like again, Allison trying to defend Rhaenyra, and then that eventually leads to her father being basically fired from Hand of the King.
Yeah.
Which is
Also,
so
like
tragic.
Crazy.
yeah, and
Crazy
then
how
also,
those events just spun out of control. Like they were just like so random, you know.
yeah, and then
It just
you
like
also,
one thing can lead to another. With anything can like everyone's decision is like gonna fuck up someone else's. I love that.
yeah, and then you also have Daemon and Viserys confrontation on the Iron Throne, which is very interesting to me because Daemon, it almost seems to me like whatever people think of him, he's just gonna embrace it, even if it's not true.
Mhm.
The entire
Mhm.
thing of him, like, oh yeah, I did the rumors are true, even though he knows that they're not. Technically, they're not. Which
Yeah, but he wants that power, right? Is that what you're gonna say? Or
well, I was gonna say like that made me go back and think about episode 1, like when he gets exiled for the first time, when Otto says like, "Oh, like Damon said made a joke about your son air for a day or whatever," and that almost made me think: did he even say it, or is he just
oh,
pretending that he said it because that's what everybody thinks? Because that's what he does in this episode, and then you go back and you're kind of like double guessing yourself now
but what's
about
the
that
objective
too.
of that? Just to feed into what people say. It's just like
I think he's just like embracing the chaos, I guess.
okay, yeah, embracing the lies, the truth, just so we can have some kind of like some sort of sway or whatever.
Yeah.
And by embracing it, he does like beg the question that he directly asks Viserys, like, make her my heir, and then we can have even stronger claim to the throne.
Yeah.
And eventually, of course, it happens. I really didn't expect it to happen, man. Jesus Christ. Now
So
I think about that episode and everything happened.
Yeah, so he's asking for his claim, and Viserys is disgusted about it. He's like, "What the? Get out of here!" Again, he gets exiled again.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
But yeah, like
I love how he just lied on the floor in the middle of the
Yeah.
iconic area. He just fucking tried to take a nap in it. That was hilarious.
Yeah. But we really do only have like 2 major scenes here. First one being Viserys and Rhaenyra coming to terms. Like I was discussing with episode 3, he's like finally giving her the choice to pick whoever she wants to marry, and then going up against his own words and telling her like, okay, you have to do this to fix your own issues, fix your own fuck up, basically, with Daemon, with the rumors. Then it's a really interesting dynamic because then Rhaenyra is like, okay, I'll do it, but fire Otto Hightower because this guy is clearly spying on me to like conspire against me, so we have to fix that first. And then that leads to Otto getting fired, which I think it's a very interesting scene because we have Viserys basically going on this tantrum about like how his father was the hand of the king, and he was meant to be the actual king, the heir, not Viserys,
Mhm.
and how he died out of nowhere. He just dropped dead, and what a
Yeah.
lucky day must have been for you, Otto Hightower, and it's just incredible.
I think it was only because Viserys couldn't take the idea that Rhaenyra was, that happened to Rhaenyra, and he just didn't want to hear that information in general, regardless if it was true or not.
Yeah,
And Otto just kept on beating the bush every single second he got with bad news. So too much to the point where I think Viserys got fucking tired of it.
yeah,
Yeah, and like we've been talking about, Viserys' relationship with Rhaenyra has been strained but growing. And even though he asked her, like, it's your choice, now because of these rumors, he's upset, logically so. And now he says, you know what, now you're going to marry Laenor. But because the relationship has grown and developed, he also listens to her when she says, hey, Otto is using you, we should fire him. And I think I like that whole development there where people have been telling him that for a while now. I think part of him even figured as much. But Damon has been telling him that forever, and he hasn't listened. But it's when Rhaenyra says it during this scene that he actually like takes it into consideration and goes through with it. Which, again, in two parts. Rhaenyra's doing this for her advantage because she doesn't have a good relationship with Otto. But it's just another strain in her relationship with Alicent. Alicent, as we talked about, is so isolated, so closed off from everybody she loves in King's Landing. She's stuck with her children. She's stuck with having children with Viserys, even though she doesn't want to. She has really no friends. Relationship with Rhaenyra was growing in the beginning of episode 4, but has strained again with these rumors because Rhaenyra's lying to her again. And then now her father, which even though the father pushed her to be in this predicament, a father's a father. And it's always a good presence to have around. And with him leaving, that's not what Alicent wants. And we'll see in episode 5 how that progresses. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're still muted there, Edgar.
Sorry. No, but I was saying...
Silly goose.
We can just jump into episode 5. I mean, the only last scene is the tea scene, but I mean, it really does have more to play into episode 5. So,
what tea scene?
Her receiving the moon tea.
Oh, like the
plan B, basically. yeah.
But it's more relevant. Oh yeah, I remember now.
But it's more relevant to episode 5, so we can just get into it. Where does episode 5 begin?
Are they on the ship at the beginning of episode 5?
I think
so.
They're
going to Laenor.
Yeah, homeboy.
Yeah, to Laenor, my goat.
Valeris is sick. Throwing up.
Yep.
At this point, they already planned that he is 100%. Rhaenyra is 100% marrying Laenor, correct?
Yeah. Wait. I just remember episode 5 begins with Daemon killing his wife, Rhea Royce.
Oh yeah.
Wait, this episode 5? Wow.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, he kills
Bronze
her with
Bee.
the horse, right? In the middle of the day or something.
Didn't mean to kill her, really? I love how interesting that scene is, where he goes up to her, stops, and then they banter. She goes off on him, basically, about his sexual imperfections, per se. And he's not happy about it. But then he gets up close, the horse, rears back and hits Rhea Royce. Yeah, and she's like basically paralyzed after that. And I don't think that was like the intention. He didn't like shake the horse or anything. He just like he saw his hand move up, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, he took the rock and didn't he kill her?
After that, yeah, because she's still talking shit. You can't talk shit when you're paralyzed.
Like what she said, like double meaning of "I know that you couldn't finish" or something like that.
Yeah. It's funny. This is the episode that
she
begins.
Just got on his fucking nerves, and he's like, "I can't." She's like, "Me personally, I will not take the soul of disrespect."
This is the episode that begins Daemon's like trilogy of wives here. He has a wife in episode 5 with Rhea that dies. Episode 6 with Lena dies. Episode 7 with Rhaenyra. Hopefully he doesn't die. Maybe he does that. At least not in episode 7. So yeah, it was just very interesting. It just has a trilogy of wives every new episode. Crazy. But yeah, so Daemon, is now wifeless as he returns to King's Landing for a big celebration. Yeah, but that's later on. But yeah, we're here for Driftmark.
Driftmark, yeah. Very, very. I wouldn't really say comical scene, but you can tell Carlos is just very, very being extremely petty about the entire situation, not receiving the king, not welcoming him, just waiting, sitting on his chair, chilling. Um, Basically, like asking Viserys to back him for his support for Laenor's hand, basically, which is kind of interesting. Like it's the reverse thing. Usually, you see the guy going to ask for the hand of the woman, but in this case, because they're like that desperate to make amends, like it's the opposite.
Yeah, he's so such a proud character. He's so proud of his legacy of all his accomplishments that he has in that grand room of all his voyages and travels. He doesn't even greet them. He has his son and Lena greet them. And of course, Viserys should take offense to that, but he really doesn't because Viserys is a passive guy. But yeah, it was just a very awesome scene for Corlys.
Mm. And then also like very interesting between Rhaenys, Laenor, and Viserys, the whole conversation about like, well, if they get married, will their children carry the name Balerion, and will they become the heirs to the throne? And and Viserys basically like, no. Like they can carry the Valerian name at the beginning, but once they become kings, that's when their Targaryen name comes into place. So again, Corlys' own ambition, like shown in the show.
Yeah, that felt very comical to me. Where it's like, hey, they be Valerian, but when they're sitting on the throne, then you change the last name. I'm like, that's never going to happen, right? But I guess it is. I mean, they're called. Her sons eventually get called Valerians. I'm like, okay, this is confusing. So yeah, at least until they're on the throne, they'll be called Valerians, and they're not Targaryens. Even though Rhaenyra's a Targaryen, very confusing stuff. So like, even in episode 7, like Rhaenyra's children are called Valerians, right? They're Lucen, Viserys and Viserys Valerian. Joffrey Valerian. That's very confusing, but I'll go with it. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Corlys.
No, but yeah, like, and then you have the scene between him and Rhaenys talking in private once Viserys
Great scene.
leaves, and basically she like straight up tells him like, you're not seeing the bigger picture. We're putting our children in danger by marrying them off to my family, to the Targaryens.
She's really the only one that sees like the dangers ahead.
Yeah, she's the only one that sees what's up because like she's already been in that position. Not necessarily war, but she knows that Rhaenyra is not gonna have it easy.
Yeah, she knows that. Oh, automatically you can picture Rhaenyra versus Alicent. If Rhaenyra has kids with our Laenor, then those kids are going to be prime targets, ground zero for the conflicts to come. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have Rhaenyra's and Laenor's agreement about whether you prefer goose or duck and
goose
all that
or
stuff.
Duck. Yeah. Everybody knows he's gay, and she's gonna let him do his thing.
He doesn't go for that, by the way.
But he doesn't really go for it. And I mean, I think that they both like this plan. I mean, it's just a pretty solid plan, right? Like we can both have our side things. We just got to play the roles. If only things went to plan.
Yeah, it's like Damon said in episode 4, like marriage is just like for show, it's just for politics. Like you can
do whatever you want afterwards.
Yeah. And well, and as that happens, then we have the scene between Rhaenyra and Kristen Cole in the ship about basically rejecting his very stupid offer of like just running away to Essos and being like, what was he expecting, like for her to take her dragon too and like just keep it, like park it somewhere? Or
I think to be fair to Kristen, as I talked about in episode 3, there was a moment when between Kristen and Rhaenyra where they're very genuine with each other, walking after she ran away from the stresses of the hunt, and she's like, I don't know if I want to continue doing this. Like, people won't respect me, and I don't know if I'm really ready for this. I don't know if I'm really going to be able to impact anyone. And Kristen was the first person to say that, no, you are ready. Your life changed my life. So I think he's still holding on to that scene, that really like that past version of Rhaenyra. little does he know that over the past couple episodes, especially episode 4, Rhaenyra has grown, both like sexually and just as a leader, and she is now accepting and ready for her position, despite the challenges. And Christian does not see that coming, and he's very much taken aback by that. He thinks he sees little Rhaenyra, but now she's grown, and he doesn't get the answer he wants, unfortunately. For him.
Yeah. And then back in King's Landing, we have a very heartbreaking and kind of infuriating scene between Otto and Allison. Like Otto's like farewell to her, like basically like that's the final step in him injecting paranoia into Allison with the whole like Rhaenyra is gonna kill your children if you don't do this. You have to do this. Now you're gonna have to fend for yourself. If you don't, then you're basically gonna have to like beg at Rhaenyra's feet for mercy.
That's the final step into really hating Rhaenyra, you know.
Yeah.
In a way, sure, right? And also, this is one of my favorite scenes in the series. I think Rhys Ifans is so good. It was a great farewell in the way he's like spitting in her face. Basically, it's raining. It's a great scene. Also from Emily too. She's giving it her all. He's just like yelling in her face, like, "This is what happens. Rhaenyra's gonna destroy you, basically, and your legacy, your children." And she's like, "Whoa, wait, no, this is my friend. The rumors can't be true. She told me it's not true." And Otto's like, "I'm being fired. So obviously she did something. Like, come on. Like, you can't be this blind, Allison." And that's why I like this scene so much. I love the Greens, crazy ass Greens. But I love this scene so much because Otto is like, he's very wrong. Well, we can't say wrong because he's talking about stuff that hasn't happened yet. But his vision of Rhaenyra saying that, oh, Rhaenyra is going to kill your children, from what we've seen of Rhaenyra from the past 5 episodes, it's not what Rhaenyra would do. We don't see Rhaenyra as that kind of ruler. Again, she let the white stag go away. She did not kill it. But Otto is saying she will kill your children, even though we've seen, although it wasn't a child, we see Rhaenyra make the decision not to kill a being. Besides the boar who physically attacked Rhaenyra. So from episode 3, we get a sense that Rhaenyra will only kill if it's meant to be killed, if it's life or death. But Otto is pushing this into Alicent. Even though Alicent isn't having it or wants to disagree, we see in the future episodes that this scene does have an impact on Alicent. And again, it's so tragic because Alicent's such not a passive character, but again, she's being told something by her father. And she just has to take it in, even though she wants to go against it. And this scene's very pivotal for her character because she's eventually going to follow this trend this mindset that Otto's having. And it's really going to sever her relationship with Rhaenyra because she doesn't want to believe it. But then once it comes to light in a few scenes later, then Alicent's like, fuck me. Oh, and you can tell she feels much more alone after that. Once again, I can understand people hate Alicent, but these scenes, these episodes are why I like Alicent so much because it makes her so much more human and understandable.
Yeah, this is part of the reason why I genuinely like kind of side with Alicent.
Yeah,
just there are some reasons, you know. I think everything she's done in the 5th and 6th are like the main reasons. Like you can just feel for her, man.
You can, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and also like in this scene, like basically Otto is blaming her for getting fired.
Yeah,
and even though it's kind of true, but also isn't. The situation isn't made better because then when she goes to like the Weirwood tree and Laris, the scenes that you guys were discussing earlier, mentioning about like him, like, oh, like the princess, like somebody delivered a tea that night after your father was fired or whatever, and like basically basically confirming like what Otto said, like she's not innocent. She might have not done the thing, but she did something. So yeah,
that seemed very funny. It's kind of like the ending of Usual Suspects, where she's putting the pieces together.
Yeah,
she's like,
it really is.
Son of a bitch! It is like, is Rhaenyra playing me? Is she playing me? And that's when she brings in Kristen to confirm her suspicions. And unfortunately, they are confirmed in a way. Not really, but she did have sex.
Yeah.
And this, let's talk about this because this is what surprised me.
Admits it, right?
Yeah, he admits it without her really goading him at all.
Yeah.
Man, if you only held off for like 1 second, it's not like anything really bad came out of it, right? Like, she didn't obviously do anything to him, and it's not going to really affect anyone's career or anything. So
it's gonna affect his career. He had sex, and he's not supposed to have sex.
but he didn't. But Allison sides with him now. So like, what really?
Well, obviously, she needs allies.
Yeah, true. But he didn't really have any consequences from admitting that. So
no, I mean he thinks he will. He's like, just kill me quickly. He thinks he'll have a consequence because he does rat out that he had sex with Rhaenyra, and of course, Allison's looking for Rhaenyra had sex with Daemon, but she's shocked by this. Either way, Rhaenyra had sex, and this confused me as a casual viewer a little bit because I'm like, why is Allison so upset about Rhaenyra just having sex? But it goes back to like tradition. Rhaenyra is allowed to do these things, and Rhaenyra doesn't get punished for it. She's successfully lying, and her closest family member, and Otto, who again wasn't the best father, but it was somebody she had, it was a presence that she had, is now gone, and she has nobody, and it's thanks to Rhaenyra.
It's also like the old versus new mentality of her, like being like holding on to like old, like the whole values, the rules, and then Rhaenyra holding on to the new, like she's like the bright future of the kingdom, and she doesn't really like that because, well, she's been through like the hell basically with Viserys. So yeah.
Would you say, because you know a bit more, Edgar, she's even more upset because of her religious background as a Hightower, being so close to the Sept and everything like that, and that makes it even more of an issue with Allison in particular?
Okay. So I know some stuff that's gonna happen. Allegedly, is gonna happen in this Sunday's episode. That kind of answers your question.
Oh, interesting.
So
wow.
So yeah, I'm just gonna leave it
there. That's how I took it, because I was watching some other videos on YouTube about that scene and why Allison is so upset, and it's because like on the High Towers are so close to the Maesters, and there was that early scene in like episode 1 or 2 where they're praying. Where Allison's playing at least, and then Rhaenyra's in the background. Then she comes with Allison. Like Rhaenyra's not too religious, but Allison is. So that might have a play into why she's even more upset, because there's more of a religious background, which makes it even more like meta and modern, because the issues with religion in modern day America and all that kind of stuff. So it's just so interesting. It's so human and interesting, and I love it. But yeah, Allison's not happy, and I think this scene draws a line for her. And this afterwards, where we get the wedding, and this after this scene.
Well, before the wedding, we get one last scene between Lionel and Viserys. Basically, him like, will they remember me as a good king? Like, they remember my grandfather as the reconciliator or something like that, like as the good king. And what are they gonna remember me for? Like the weak or something like that. He said, I don't remember the exact words. Like, you know how each Targaryen monarch has been remembered by like a special name, like there's the Conqueror, there's the Cruel, titles like that, and he's like, well, why would I be remembered for that? Which, I mean, we've been talking about that. It's just an extension of that. Yeah, it's an extension of that conversation. But we can jump into the wedding, the meat of this episode, before we close off this episode of the podcast. So
yeah, this wedding, really good. I love a good.
Not for the characters,
not for the characters, but as a viewer, fun to watch. The only little thing, even though I love Allison's entrance, it felt very much for the audience. It's like, do you know why she's wearing green? It didn't feel that genuine of a comment to make, like. But it felt like for the audience. It's like, hey, audience, do you know why she's wearing green? It's because she's a like, okay, I get it as a viewer. Like, I get it, but it felt very much like pushing it towards the audience.
I feel like if it was show not tell, it would have been so much more dramatic, well made. If they just didn't explain it and then they kind of like let it to the audience, why is it so green or anything like that,
Yeah. But to be fair, this is one of the rare Harwin and Larys scenes that we get, and one of my only main criticisms for the series so far was the absence of Harwin, who was so pivotal in episode 6. And I had some people talk to me like, who was Harwin again? I know he died in episode 6, but who was he again? I'm like, he was kind of in episode 5 with that one green comment scene. He was kind of in episode 4 and 3 a little bit. He was the guy that she walked past at night. But I wish they put more of an emphasis on Harwin. That's just a small nitpick. We talked about that in episode 6 through 10. But in general, this wedding was great. All the great entrances. Allison's was great. Damon's was hilarious. Again, he was exiled, but here he is again. And he sits at the main table. He pulls up a chair. Once again, there's nothing bad happens to him. No punishment, no consequence.
I love that scene, by the way. Where the guy who was the father of his
cousin.
Yes, the cousin of Damon's wife that was murdered, and he knew that it was so clearly, obviously Damon.
Yeah,
and he was just laughing at him, like, "What the fuck are you gonna do, man?"
That was so fucking funny. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, are you insinuating I did something? Because I was thinking I could take your tower. I mean, it's owned to me now.
And he tells him, "I'm actually happy that you came here to tell me about that because I'm actually going to take over your shit and you're going to deal with it." You know, it was so badass.
And then the guy's like, he takes that back. He's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't push my luck here.
Yeah, and then Lionel's and Viserys' reactions are so funny because you can tell like they're realizing like, oh, this fucking guy is the one that's responsible behind this.
Yeah. They all know. They all know.
Who was the guy that wanted to marry Rhaenyra really badly and proposed it to everyone?
Sure.
Oh, the Lannister guy, Jason Lannister?
Yeah, Jason. Yeah, he showed up to the wedding and he was like, trying to say he's not jealous. Obviously, that's funny as well. Yeah.
It's just controversy after controversy. First, Jason Lannister, then Daemon's arrival, and then Allison's arrival, and then the king not being able to remember his speech that he was just giving. It's just
so chaotic.
It's a fucking mess.
One of my favorite lines is when Allison comes up to Rhaenyra. It's like, "Hey, stepdaughter," or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And it was just so awkward. Like the division has clearly been made. They're not friends anymore. It's just like basically cordial, and tragic to see. Their relationship is pretty much gone at this point. She's marking her stance, and then into dancing and stuff. I love the Daemon and Rhaenyra scene. Is there something you're going to talk about before that part, though? Or
me? Let's see. I thought the dance scene between Laenor and Rhaenyra was pretty cool. Like it kind of looks like a dragon dance, like the dance of the dragon. So it's kind of like maybe foreshadowing or not. But that's really cool. And then you also have the Valerian's cool ass intro to the wedding.
They come in there, boss. That was great.
What was the boyfriend's name, by the way?
Joffrey.
Joffrey,
yeah. That was great. They kind of came in like Harry Potter, Goblet of Fire, when the Russians come in. It's like, it's like they all come so hot.
You guys want to get to that scene now, by the way?
Oh, yeah, in a second. But I like the Rhaenyra and Daemon scene where they're talking and Daemon's like, "I will take you," or you. I wish you can just like take me to Dragonstone and make me your wife, or something like that. And they're on the verge of kissing or whatever. It's just so much hot sexual tension is happening in that scene. And I just love the dichotomy because Viserys is trying to see what's going on, and nobody can really get a glimpse of what's going on. And then all out chaos starts happening. I just loved all of that.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see that play out the way that it does. Because like Fire and Blood, like it's a history book. It's with unreliable sources or whatever. And instead of the show, which I like that they're doing this, instead of sometimes it does give you like concrete answers, not always, but most of the time it tries to give you concrete answers. And then you have situations here like in the wedding where you don't really see, or you can't really tell what really happens, which is I kind of took it like as a throwback to the book of like nobody really knowing what happens, but you can speculate who started the fight. So that's right.
Yeah, even us, we couldn't tell what was happening. The camera work was so well done. We were just like, we felt like Viserys trying to get a good look at what's happening. Where did the chaos start? You assume it started from Kristen, but maybe it was somebody else. Oh yeah, and we got the whole Joffrey and Kristen scene where Kristen's just boiling up because Joffrey's like, let's keep this a secret or whatever, and Kristen isn't taking it so well. He's tightening his fist.
that acting from Kristen when he was leaning over to his ear and just trying to explain it to him and tell him essentially that we know your secret and you're never gonna. And he had it's almost like he had no choice, but it felt like there was a choice, because he definitely wanted to run away. At that point, he's like, okay, we got to run away and get the fuck away from here and have Rhaenyra come with me.
Yeah, you can tell that Joffrey was trying to make a deal. Like Rhaenyra knows their secret. He wants to know her secret now. So just if anything happens in between,
it's also him at that point where he's like, I can't go on because I'm probably going to be executed for allegedly, what he admitted to Alicent about Rhaenyra. So he thinks this is the only thing he can do to protect Rhaenyra in a way, and it was such a hasty move that he made, but it was insane when he beat him up and stuff for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's very selfish. Again, it's going back to him. It's about his duty. He felt like he dishonored himself. And even though Joffrey, I don't think, was being too malicious there in the deal, that's how Kristen took it, because he's internalizing it, combined with his guilt, and that just combos into a huge anger beat him up fest. Man, it was pretty gnarly.
Mm-hmm. And this obviously leads us to the shotgun wedding right there and then. They haven't even cleaned up the blood. The rats are drinking it or whatever they're doing it.
The rats are back. Yeah, the rats are back. Oh, also shout out to Harwin pulling Rhaenyra out of that mess.
Pulling a Henry Cavill in fella.
Yeah, Lionel was like, "Bro or son, go get him," and he was like, "Oh." Came in there, picked her up. It was great. Loved it. But yeah, then they have a shotgun wedding, and it was so peaceful, right? So beautiful. So beautiful.
Laenor crying in the middle of his vows.
I do. Yeah, not great.
That was sad, man. I genuinely felt horrible for Laenor. I really did.
Everybody was punished by the end of this.
Oh yeah, definitely. Everyone had.
Viserys even like fainting at the end.
Viserys.
Oh yeah, I thought he died.
Me too. I was like, oh wow, this is how it happened.
Nope, the king's dead. King's dead. That's it.
Yeah, I thought he was dead.
I'll be back, bro.
Yeah,
that's actually my favorite ending besides the most recent episode. That was the best ending of the show so far, I'd say.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, Viserys has fallen over. His health is diminishing. Alicent is still left alone because her father's gone. And then Laenor, of course, is married to Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra is married to Laenor. It's something neither of them really want, but it has to happen because of tradition. One of the rare times Rhaenyra does something for tradition. But yeah, and it's also for her claim as well.
At this point, she doesn't really have a choice,
Exactly. She doesn't really have a choice here.
Everyone's just backed into a corner that they can't get themselves out of. And it's just it's pretty much a lose situation for everyone.
It's inevitable. Exactly. Yeah. And for Rhaenyra, I mean, it's not the worst. Laenor is a great guy. He just unfortunately swings the other way. But also, we skipped out over Kristen's sacrifice, which is always a beautiful scene with the moonlight in the background. He goes over to the tree. I'm like, oh my god, this is
fucking amazing, man!
Beautiful shot.
It was nighttime or something, right? And it was,
now that's a great nighttime shot.
Yeah, I was so convinced. I was like, this is how they're gonna end the episode. Fuck this shit.
Yeah, I thought he was so dead. I think that'd be a poetic ending for Kristen. But it gets even more beautiful where he's on the verge of killing himself. He has nothing to live for. And who is in the background? Alicent, who's in need of allies, who's in need of somebody to be on her side. And of course, now they are both on team anti-Rhaenyra for decent reasons.
There's no denying that.
Kristen less so than Alicent. But I like how Alicent was that beacon of light, maybe the high tower light for Kristen here. I thought it was a pretty touching scene, even though we love to hate these two now. I thought it was a really touching scene between both of them, where she's like, it's not like I don't know what Alicent says in this scene. Does she say a lot, or does she just say like, "Hey, Kristen," or something like that?
I don't think she says anything. It's
I don't
just
think she
like
says anything.
She said
Right?
stop, and then she said, and I think that's where it ended. I think.
Yeah, I think it's just like
Yeah.
it's a scene that says 1,000 words without them having to explicitly say anything. With this one scene,
Oh, yeah.
him on his knees.
The show
Alice-
knows when to put intricate dialogue into one section and one sequence, and not have dialogue in another. I love that. About
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
No, it's very smart.
Allison's in the foreground, and you can tell that she's coming in to save him. He's gonna be indebted to her now, especially because she is the queen, and they're gonna have a relationship moving forward.
Right. It's a perfect example of show don't tell. Perfect.
Exactly. Two isolated figures in their own respects, joining together, and maybe they can create something stronger. Not romantically, but just out of necessity.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Episode 5 was a banger.
I think that's my second, third episode of the show.
So many. I like episode 3, 4, and 5 are just on fire. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up here, I just wanted to ask you guys like general thoughts on these 5 episodes, favorite moments. Which would be your favorite so far? And
would you like to rank them?
I mean, we can do that once we for the second
later
part.
on.
For part 2. But yeah, like just final thoughts.
You can go first, Sean.
Okay. Yeah, overall, I think the show, to start with, it was perfect. The middle of it, everything has been intriguing. It's been probably my favorite espionage thing from all of Game of Thrones so far. I think the first season of this is way, way better than season 1 of Game of Thrones. It's such a strong start overall, and it immediately captivates you. Every character, every decision that someone makes, you have to know about it. You have to understand why they did that, because everything is going to play a part towards the end, and the overall civil war of the Targaryens is ultimately going to happen. And it's so crazy how it all spins from this, the friendship that Alicent and Rhaenyra had. So ultimately, I think that yes, this show is honestly so far it's perfect. I think everything about it, the pacing is amazing. The structure of the show is fantastic. I love the way I love the time gap stuff. Honestly, it's just everything is important. And in the show, setting it in a time with just complete peace, no war whatsoever, I thought it wouldn't be that interesting. And originally, I was like, yeah, it's cool to see where it gets to, but it's a peacetime, right? So how can it be, extremely captivating? But I think it blew my expectations overall. I love the show. So yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's crazy because this show is a show with 10 or so dragons, dragon eggs, incest, craziness, prophecies. But the beauty of the show is that these are human characters who are being written so well that we can learn to understand them and their relationships and their dynamics with one another. And my favorite parts about this episodes 1 through 5 is just learning more about Rhaenyra and Daemon and the series. Those 3 in particular, and Alicent 4, have just been so well written all together. We see their anguish, we see their pain, we see their happiness, we see everything, the emotional gauntlet from all 3 of them. I just love how well written they are. The cast has been great. Once again, Emily and Millie were phenomenal.
Whoever cast the older actresses as those characters, fucking bravo. Holy shit, man.
Big time. Yeah.
Couldn't have had a better casting director. Could not have had a better casting director.
Yeah. Also, in particular, I love episode 3's fight sequence. I think the conflict, the battle has been really well directed, as well as the good character moments. I love the whole Rhaenyra symbolic mission with the stag in episode 3 as well. I like the meeting between the second son. It felt very behind closed doors, very character-driven scenes there. Then Daemon's whole character in general is fascinating to be in the first 5 episodes, learning what he's doing in each particular episode. His romance with Rhaenyra is just my favorite thing of this show. And I love episode 4, just learning more about Rhaenyra and her sexual awakening, going through King's Landing and all that kind of stuff was very cool. And
who would you say your favorite character of the show so far?
Well, the favorite character is easily Daemon, followed closely by Rhaenyra, very closely. And then Viserys and Alicent. But yeah, it's just so much to love. I can't pick out any more scenes. I love the Dragonstone scene, the volume now that I know scene.
Yeah, outlook on it's completely different now.
Yeah, same. Crap. Oh, and of course the wedding is so well directed too. It's just the chaos of the wedding. I love each episode had a particular scene that I just adored. Yeah. Every episode.
The best things of Game of Thrones and just combined it and put it into one season. I think it's already perfect.
Yeah, it's already like my favorite show of the year so far, and we're only halfway through. A little bit over halfway through, and each episode ends with me saying, "I just want more. I need to know what happens next." And I think a little bit of con is like with these time skips, the episodes have to do a bigger, heavy lifting in terms of like establishing these new dynamics compared to the previous time jump. But I think they're doing an adequate job of it. My only other negative is that I wish we saw more of Harwin. I'm curious to see more of Laris. I know he's villainous, but like he was so easy to kill his brother. Wait, that was episode 6, right? Whoops. What about that later?
Yeah,
but like, it's just like I'm very curious to see like the main characters have been written so well. I'm hoping the side characters are written well because even regardless of episode 6, I wish I saw more of Lena. There's certain side characters like Lena, Harwin. These episodes needed to be the one to do the heavy lifting to make the future episodes more important. And I don't think Lena got enough screen time. I don't think Harwin got enough screen time. But that was it. Like basically, just the side characters that just needed a bit more screen time to be more impactful. But that's about it. Overall, fantastic season.
Yeah. For me, like, I mean, a lot of people in the internet, love to hate on stuff even before they haven't even seen it yet. Like, your typical, I won't watch this because the ending of Game of Thrones disappointed me, yada yada yada. Which I mean,
people are still doing that, by the way, which is fucking insane.
Which I mean, I can understand from a certain point of view, but like at the end of the day, we all know you're just like big talking. Like you're gonna watch the show. Like who are you? Who are you kidding? But yeah, like just with the show, like it's been great. This first 5 episodes are an excellent setup to what's to come. I do have a few issues with the time jumps, especially towards the second half, as Evan mentioned. But I really do think that at the end of the day, it's gonna end up being beneficial for the series as a whole, because in a sense they're doing the reverse Game of Thrones, where Game of Thrones really used to take its time in the earlier seasons, and as it got towards the second half of the show, it was just like vroom, like they super rushed. So them just doing this time jumps for the first season and is gonna help them. It's gonna allow them to really like slow down for season 2, season 3, maybe even season 4, with which season they're planning on end this show. But yeah, I mean, I love this world. I love these characters. Damon is my guy. I love him. Corliss again.
Everybody loves Damon. That's what I love. My dad is obsessed with Damon, man. Every time he texts me, Damon the GOAT after each episode.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And just the conversations of this show is sparking. They're just like so much fun.
It's insane to think about the fact that this show has single-handedly revived the interest and the love and the passion that everyone has for Game of Thrones for the past 10 years that disappeared in 2019. Right?
I'm glad you mentioned that, Sean. Because I was so pessimistic. I'll be honest. I was
me too.
Like I was excited for more content. I'm like, okay, I'll watch it. I'll definitely watch it. But I'm just, especially with them saying, Dan and Dave are gone. I'm like, okay, this could be good. But I was the guy saying like, Game of Thrones has completely left the the mental subconscious of the audience.
It was way more hype for Rings of Power than this going in. Like no one was kind of like that overwhelmingly hyped about it because it's season 8. I mean, people are excited, sure, but like I don't remember the reception to it has been just overwhelming. I think that's because of low expectations. Like if Game of Thrones season 8 was fantastic, like perfect, this wouldn't have had as great of a reception. I think we're really lucky that this will exist.
Maybe, but yeah, I was so
perfect show though.
Yeah, I'm so happy that it just knocked everybody's socks off with that for fantastic first premiere.
Yeah. And for me, as somebody who's read the book, I'm just eager to see people's reactions towards later what's going to happen in the last 3 episodes and later on in future seasons.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen. That little shit.
I'm happy to know anything as a casual fan. I really am happy.
Me too. Especially for this first season. I think over next summer, I'm going to read everything. because I can't wait.
Are you definitely committed to that or what?
Yeah, especially because unlike Dune, I told myself after Dune Part 1, I'm going to read Dune and I'm going to be all caught up. But Dune comes out next year. I don't have time. But I think Fire and Blood's going to come out for season 2 at least in 2024 at least. So I'm like, I have 2 years to read this freaking book. I already have it, so why not? So yeah, I'll be all set for season 2. But luckily, like Edgar's experience has been said, so many others, it's like because of the
nature of the book,
it's a fresh experience for everybody, regardless if you read the book. So that gets me very excited.
Yeah.
And Edgar's freaking teases. I can't wait.
Hey, I don't know if it's gonna happen for sure, but I'm just gonna say episode 8. From what I hear.
Man. Cool.
But yeah, like if that's all you guys have and you guys are done for the day, then Sean, where can people find you?
People can find me at Twitter at ccbacara, and my YouTube channel is the exact same thing if you want to check out some videos I have there. Also, I just want to say real quick, episode 8 is going to be amazing. I just saw the picture of the
poster
for it, and Rhaenyra and Damien together. Can't fucking wait.
Peak. I love that. I love them so
much. Evan?
You guys can find me on Twitter at HarrisEV9. There's a lot going on. Rings of Power, I gotta watch that, and I need to take a nap. But after I take a nap, I'll be watching Rings of Power, Abbott Elementary. Every Wednesday, I'm tweeting about Survivor and Amazing Race. But also on Nathan Rojas' channel, of course, be quiet. Season 43, baby. Every Tuesday, we're doing commentaries. We'll be finishing up our Alien versus Predator saga commentary franchise, whatever. Next Tuesday, we're watching The Predator 2018, which
rough.
I hate that movie, but Nathan's putting a gun to my head to watch it because Carson, I don't think, has seen it.
Prey is the best Predator movie, by the way. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where I put that in my ranking because I also didn't like a lot of the old Alien movies.
You didn't see Prey yet?
I've seen Prey. But I'm very curious to see where I put The Predator because I did not like that in 2018. It was my least favorite movie of that year. Yesterday we did a review on Andor on Hyperspace Hype. Andor episode 5. Another fantastic show. And then tomorrow we'll be bringing back My Cup of Tea to talk about everything that happened basically in August because we haven't done one in a month basically. Talk about that Mario trailer amongst other things. So yeah, fun week of podcasting.
Yeah. Well, you can find me at EDGORTEG on Instagram, Twitter, all the good stuff. As always, you can find my work, some of my written work at Loud and Clear Reviews. I'm covering House of the Dragon every week, every Sunday. You can expect my recaps and breakdowns and all that good stuff on Monday morning-ish. And yeah, you can find the podcast at WHFG Podcast, Instagram, Twitter, all the good stuff. And well,
if you guys like people of color leading the show, just don't feel afraid to let it know in the comments and keep hashtag WHFG.
And what was I saying? Oh yeah, so as you probably saw in the title of this episode, this is just part 1. We're just discussing episodes 1 through 5, so expect a second part to close up this mini-series of sorts, this 2-parter mini-series, once the show comes to a close, hopefully in a couple weeks. So yeah, that's all. And I guess I'll give him a shout out. You can find one of our co-hosts, Josh Woodbury, at Josh D Woodbury on Twitter. So if you want to do that, go ahead and give him a follow. But if that is it, then that is goodbye for us, and we'll see you on the next one.
You guys, bye.
Ring the bell.
Ring the bell.